So this segment is going to show you the good and the bad about RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. Now, I'm not for canceling anybody because we disagree with them on something.
Yeah, and also whoever made that up's an idiot, and it has sucked the whole time.
So I just want to show you, here's something I just found at his website, his Twitter feed today. This is Bobby Kennedy. He says, "Oh no, cancer patients and farmers have been winning lawsuits against pesticide companies. So Congress is coming to the companies' rescue with the proposed Agricultural Labeling Uniformity Act. It will prevent local governments from regulating pesticides and block this kind of legal claim so that the pesticide companies will no longer have to answer for poisoning people in the environment. As president, I will veto this kind of legislation, period." That's the good RFK. That's kind of like, yes.
Yeah, right.
That's what gets me going. But here he's going to talk about Israel, Palestine, but he goes way further. And he starts to warmonger with Russia. I thought he was the anti-warmongering Russia-China guy. He's going to, watch this.
Sounds like he's doing a paid sponsorship and hitting his points on the ad copy.
Watch this.
Like. Bill is critical, and the reason it's critical is because it's a bulwark for us in the Mideast. It's almost like having an aircraft carrier in the Mideast. It's our oldest.
He's saying that, and now he's saying that having Israel in the Middle East is like having an aircraft carrier for the United States in the Middle East, except that aircraft carrier has a giant concentration camp on it.
It's a concentration camp carrier. It's kind of.
It's really a concentration camp carrier. Okay.
It's been our ally for 75 years. It has been an incredible ally for us in terms of the technology, the exchange, and in building the Iron Dome, which we've paid a lot for, has also taught us enormously about how to defend ourselves at home from missiles. So those military expenditures are all going. 75% of it goes to U.S. companies under the agreement, under the MOU. But if you look at what's happening in the Mideast now, Iran is now the closest allies to Iran are Russia and China. Iran also
who are they supposed to be allied with? They're supposed to be allied with the United States, who overthrew their democratically elected government, installed a puppet, which led to their theocratic right-wing government that they have now, as called blowback, which is what the CIA, their own term for what they did to Iran, because that's what they did. And he on my show, he said, Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. That's because we overthrew the other democracies. So what's Iran supposed to do? Of course, they're going to ally with people who are not trying to overthrow their government. And so here we go. There's more.
All of Venezuela's oil. Hezbollah.
And he does it with Venezuela.
Hezbollah controls their oil. Wait, so why did we go beg Venezuela for oil when we could have begged Hezbollah?
It is in Venezuela. They have propped up the Maduro regime. And
he calls it the regime. He's using propagandist talking points. He sounds like John Bolton talking about Venezuela. He's supposed to be the peace candidate. He's supposed to be an anti-war candidate. And he sounds just like John Bolton, George Bush, and Dick Cheney when he's talking right now.
It's an ad break, I think. He's doing an ad break.
This is heartbreaking. This is heartbreaking because he says so many good things, and then to hear him say this is just garbage warmongering for World War III. And what is he doing it over? Oil. The same thing our whole foreign policy has been based on since World War II, oil. And he's using that as a reasoning to demonize Russia, China, Venezuela, and Iran in defense of Israel.
They control that oil supply. BRICS, Saudi Arabia is now joining BRICS. So those countries.
I thought Saudi Arabia is our ally. We have the petrodollar.
They were.
The whole reason why the American dollar is the reserve currency of the world is because of Saudi Arabia and the petrodollar. I thought they were our ally. So now he's even turning on Saudi Arabia in defense of Israel.
Why would this? I can't get over this. Like Hezbollah controls Venezuela's oil, and they're propping up Maduro. Why do they have to prop up Maduro? Whose fault is that?
We're exactly right.
So we don't want them to control. We also don't want Venezuela to control their oil.
So
both of those are unacceptable.
That's what I'm hearing.
These will control 90% of the oil in the world. If Israel disappears, the vacuum in the Mideast, which is, Israel is our ambassador, it's our presence, our beachhead in the Mideast, and it gives us ears and eyes in the Mideast. It gives us intelligence. It gives us the capacity to influence affairs in the Mideast. If Israel disappeared, Russia.
It gives us the ability to. How we influence affairs in the Middle East. We drop bombs on the Middle East. We overthrow their governments. Mm-hmm. We foment discord. We foment Al Qaeda, Al Nusra. We decapitate their most successful states and their most successful governments. That's what we do. For what? For oil. And it sounds like, again, this is sounding exactly like John Bolton. This is heartbreaking for me, because he's finally running it as an independent. Before, his campaign was going nowhere because he was inside the Democratic Party. Now he's outside of it. He has all those good things to say about how corporations are wrecking America, about big pharma. His takes on COVID are fantastic. And then he's talking, and he's great on Ukraine. He got his mind right on Ukraine because of Oliver Stone, and now he sees that for the game it is. But now he just starts to repeat the other game, the World War III game that's happening in the Middle East. He's on board for it.
They're spreading our influence. Where's that? Our great free speech? Is that the thing it's spreading?
What influence are you spreading? We killed 1 million people in Iraq. We turned Libya, which was the most successful state, we turned it into a slave trading state now, a failed state, which run by terrorists. We did that. What did we do to Syria? The same thing. This is all for oil. That's why we did all of this. Okay.
China would be controlling the Mideast, and they control 90% of the world's oil supply, and that would be cataclysmic for U.S. national security. So
basically, you're for war because of oil. That's what the thing that
Does anybody from there get to control their own country? By
right?
The way?
Why don't they get to control their own?
Someone else is going to control them. But if we don't enslave them, there's going to be slaves to somebody else. We got to enslave everybody who has anything we want.
So it sounds like to me that somebody woke up next to a dead hooker and they don't remember what they did the night before. That's what that sounds like.
I am and what happened?
What happened? We were playing a game.
It's okay.
We were playing a game. Bobby. She was laughing. That's what I remember.
We're going to take care of the whole thing.
Don't worry.
I'll give you nothing for the license.
Luckily, my brother Fredo runs this place and nobody knows anything about it.
My brother BB runs this place. He'll fix it for you.
So this is what is wrecking his campaign. This is what's wrecking him as a peace. He's not a peace candidate. He just warmongered with Russia, China, Iran, and Venezuela. That's the new World War III, and he sounds just like John Bolton on this topic. And that's horrible. And this is way beyond giving lip service to Israel. This is way beyond that. He's saying our foreign policy should be based on oil, and we can't let other countries control their own oil. That's what he's saying. That's mental. That's not mental. What that is John Bolton style foreign policy. The thing that makes my skin crawl and almost everybody's skin crawl.
Does China, by the way, by controlling them, does he mean they're going to build roads?
That's what he means.
The thing that they do.
So China. Them up? So what the United States does is we go and we slaughter millions of people. We displace millions more. We decapitate their leaders, and then we leave them, right? And that's all for oil. What China does is they actually go and invest. They invest in roads. They invest in public works projects. They actually invest in those countries, and that's, I think, what he's talking about. That they're going to control them. So we should be more like China and less like us. But he seems to be endorsing the same foreign policy that let the United States set the entire Middle East on fire. What he's not telling you is the truth. The truth is that the United States are the world's terrorists. The United States invents terror organizations, and we use those terror organizations as a pretext for us to go in. We were funding Al Nusra, Al Qaeda, and ISIS in Syria. Why? For a pipeline. That's why. And they didn't want that pipeline built through Syria. And so we decided to say that Assad was killing his own people and all that. Same thing we said about Iraq, the same thing we said about Saddam Hussein.
That's our job to kill your own people.
That's right. The same thing we said about Muammar Gaddafi, and the same thing we say about the Taliban. And for 20 years in Afghanistan, 20 years of lies in Afghanistan, all lies about Libya, all lies about Iraq, and all lies about Syria. And somehow none of that comes up in this conversation, but he's fear-mongering us about how other countries aren't allowed to control their natural resources, and that's supposed to be the job of the United States and Israel. That, again, that is warmongering World War III. And so he's no longer the peace candidate, and it brings me no joy to say this. I want to get behind Bobby Kennedy. I wanted to help him. This is horrible. Yeah. Just like it's go ahead. What do you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say that he, when he started this whole campaign, a lot of arguments I had with a lot of people were the fact that he said, they would say he's anti-China.
And with this breaking news now, massive protests around the world on both sides of the Israel-Hamas war. Remember, one side are the Hamas terrorists, the other, the Israeli nation and military trying to fight back the terrorists who hit them, butchered people on October 7th. London police estimated 300,000 people were on the streets there just this Saturday, demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Police say it was the city's biggest demonstration since the savage Hamas attacks of October 7th. But just across the English Channel, more than 180,000 people marched in Paris and other cities across France. Those demonstrations were against the rising anti-Semitism. France and Europe's largest Jewish populations are feeling this. And here at home, more fallout as anti-Israel protests rage on college campuses across America. Columbia University has now suspended a pro-Palestinian student group and its chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace. That's a group that is critical of Israeli policy. Columbia accuses both of repeatedly violating school policies, and more than 300 faculty at UCLA signed a letter demanding the university denounce campus protests there, which endorse Hamas terror attacks on Israel. Senator Ted Cruz of the great state of Texas on how all of it ties into radical left indoctrination.
It starts with universities. Universities, I call universities the Wuhan lab of the woke virus. The reason is, for the radical left, they have decided that Jews are the oppressors and Palestinians are the victims, which is why they support the violent revolution of the victims, even though, look, Hamas targeted civilians, raped and murdered women and children, and deliberately slaughtered infants.
Brian Yennis, live in New York City with more. Brian.
Harris, there are increasing calls from Jewish students, organizations, and allies for universities to do more to discipline pro-Palestinian protesters who have been overly aggressive and anti-Semitic. For instance, at MIT on Thursday, Jewish students say that they were unable to attend class because of a protest that blocked them from being able to do so. This protest put together by the Coalition Against Apartheid. This protest was against university policy because it was held at the school's main thoroughfare. The graduate president of MIT's Israel Alliance says Jewish students feel unsafe because of MIT's lack of action. Listen.
This is happening every other day on campus, to the point where, a lot of Jewish and Israeli students don't feel comfortable coming to campus because they're afraid they're going to be harassed. We have postdocs who have children, and at the daycare on campus, the anti-Israel protesters were screaming outside of the daycare, and the Israeli parents were called to get their kids to come home early because they were worried that there was going to be some kind of violence.
Now, MIT said they chose not to academically suspend pro-Palestinian protesters because of fears they could be deported. MIT has nearly 3,500 international students, 11% of the undergraduate population, and 42% of grad students. MIT President Sally Kornbluth writing this, quote, because we later heard serious concerns about collateral consequences for the students, such as visa issues, we have decided as an interim action that the students who remained after the deadline will be suspended from non-academic campus activities. The students will remain enrolled at MIT and will be able to attend academic classes and labs. And obviously, look, last week there were 24 students who were arrested at Brown University because of protests, and there were 7 people that were arrested at Brandeis University last week as well, including one Palestinian group that has been suspended from that campus because of pro-Hamas social media posts. Harris?
Brian Yanis, thank you very much for all the facts on this. Now let's get perspective. Rabbi Moshe Hauer is set to testify before Congress tomorrow at a hearing titled Confronting the Scourge of Anti-Semitism on Campus. His organization, Orthodox Union, is a co-sponsor of the March for Israel happening tomorrow on the National Mall in Washington. You and I were watching that together. This is quite a journey we're on.
It is. It is. It's a frightening journey. It's a journey that we never thought we would travel on these shores in the United States of America and the land of liberty. Never.
How do you intend to describe and to change perspectives on the National Mall tomorrow? You've got a huge focus there. You've got a big microphone, a big perch there. What is the goal?
To project the voice of the Jewish people of the State of Israel, which is a voice of peace, a voice that seeks and pursues life in everything that it does. Yes, even in those horrific pictures from Gaza, those horrific pictures of destruction, there isn't a bomb which is dropped to kill. Everything which is done to save. We are a nation which is completely, obsessively pursuing peace, and we need to pursue the peace and the safety of our people.
You know,
That's
I'm sure you're seeing this on social media, Rabbi, that there are people now among those in Gaza who are speaking out. And some are able to get out some videos as they go south and they get toward some resources and cell towers toward Egypt. And I'm wondering, when they say they blame the Hamas terrorists, are their voices even heard? Are they alone in all of this? Are they being drowned out by what people want them to say and want them to believe?
I think they are. I think they are. I think there are many of those voices. We don't believe that the Palestinian people at large, that this is their wish. Too few have been able to speak out. Too few have chosen to speak out, to project those voices. When the leader of the Palestinian Authority is afraid to hold elections and is in his 22nd year of a 4-year term because he's afraid of the vote for Hamas, that gives plenty of pause.
Wow.
But we know that there are voices, there are meaningful voices that can't stand this oppression, that can't stand the hatred, and those voices need to be elevated, and ultimately those need to be the voices. It's just going to take time. It's going to take a generation at least.
I'm so grateful to have you here and to maybe lead us through with a little faith now. What do you say to those who want to kill you and you wear, I don't know, maybe you don't describe it as a burden to be at peace with this, to turn the other cheek, to borrow biblically. You know, you need to have a ceasefire, Israel.
Welcome back to America. Ambassador Ron Dermer, don't you find it more than ironic, in fact, repulsive, that your country is being lectured all the time about civilians and you say over and over again, we're trying to avoid civilian deaths, we're trying to open up these pathways for civilians to get out. You've lost almost 40 IDF soldiers now. If you wanted to blow that country or that state, that territory off the face of the earth, you certainly could, but you choose not to. From these other countries, who are hardly civil rights authoritarian regimes, they are, but they hardly promote civil rights. They're slaughtering their own people. They're torturing their own people. Don't you find it a little odd that these international human rights groups and the New York Times and all the others never report about any of this?
Yeah, I like how you say it's a little odd. I guess you become a good diplomat. It's shameful, but you've seen the hypocrisy of the Middle East. And probably the only place that is more hypocritical than the Middle East is the United Nations. And people castigate Israel and excoriate us for what we do when we take action that no country that I'm aware of in the history of the world has taken the action that we've taken to keep the civilian population of our enemy out of harm's way. You know, I was born and raised in the United States, Mark, as you know, and as you can hear from my accent. And in Israel, I always ask myself, having been born and raised in the United States and grown up there and really loving America and think America is a good and decent country, not a perfect country. We're all imperfect, but as great superpowers go, the best country in the history of the world, and how it's treated also its enemies in times of war, because others did not do that if you know anything about history. But when I think about what Israel does, I always ask myself what I call the WWAD question. What would America do faced with this threat? So here's a question I'm going to ask you. And I'll put it in American terms so you understand what happened on October 7th and the war that we're currently waging right now. So imagine that you have 50 to 60,000 Americans are killed on a single day, the equivalent of 29 9/11s. And then you have 8,000 American hostages taken over your southern border. And then you're going to go and wage war. And what the entire world is going to talk to you about is how much humanitarian assistance is going to the people who live in those areas, and make sure you're doing everything to keep the innocent civilians out of harm's way. What do you think America would do if it was facing the threat that we were facing, not thousands of miles away in some caves in Tora Bora, but literally on your southern border? Oh, and let me add something else for you as well. You have half of your population rushing to bomb shelters because they're firing rockets at you every single day. What do you think the American government would do? So Israel should be judged not by some standard of perfection. We should be judged based on how any other country would operate under the conditions of war that we are operating. And then I think you'll find that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, is the most moral army in the world. And I say that with great respect for the United States military force.
Welcome of the Nick and CJ show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
Hey, my friends, my family, what's poppin'? Welcome back to RBN Live. This is going to be a fantastic week of RBN content for you guys. Now, the chain of videos that you've shown, there's so much to discuss. And I have a segment. I have an entire presentation just discussing the psychotic lies that come from Zionists. The idea that the IDF is the most moral army in the world. They are cowards who are, by the way, getting their ass handed to them by Hamas resistance fighters on the ground. So they have to resort to hiding and bombing hospitals. They bomb in hospitals that they claim are Hamas, even though doctors say they've been working there for years, decades. They never seen Hamas. They have these tunnels that they don't have no pictures of. And I'm glad that these psychopaths are making our job of shifting public opinion very easy. I'm going to show you guys another story later today showing how despite October 7th and propaganda, Americans are harshly turning against Israel. We're going to cover that later. Because people seeing the barbaric footage, like the Twitter timeline is horrific. Like, it's horrific. I've seen so many maimed, disfigured children. I saw one with like half their cranium blown off. Now we like scar for life. You know what I mean? I've seen these videos where Zionists are yelling at Palestinians at protest rallies. And CJ, thank God that haven't happened to me yet, because
Yeah.
there's no word to describe after seeing this. And it's like on site. You know what I mean? It's like on site now. So God forbid, if it happens, it's gonna happen, guys. You're gonna see an example of my 12 years of Muay Thai very soon. Because I'm at the mental state, I'm at a Palestinian protest, and any of these psychotic Zionists who are cheering the bombing of kids come to me sideways. I'm ready to throw hands. But CJ, I have a lot to cover today. Anything you want to add to
You
this?
can start with your story. We can start. No, I'll comment on the video, and then we can start with one of your stories, first stories, because just like this guy, it seemed like, Nick, the title says, the Sunday shows was off the hook. That's an old 90s term. Off the hook with Zionist propaganda. I was like, this is insane. I'll turn to Meet the Press. I turned to Face the Nation. I turned to This Week. I turned to freaking folks. I was like, this is freaking insane. And wait till we get
game time.
Of course, we're gonna cover the Netanyahu interview. He went on a little tour. We'll cover a little bit of that, and we'll also cover the Israeli president. Also has been out talking. They're losing the narrative, Nick. They have lost the narrative. They're trying to get it back. Go ahead.
A lot of our segments are going to blend together very well. But
I'll let you start. Go ahead.
This. You guys need to take care of yourself. You know what I mean? There's a lot of trauma online. Like, I'm radicalized beyond belief. You know what I mean? I gotta be careful what I say on YouTube. Beyond belief, seeing the disgusting war crimes and Israel sending a message to the United States and their allies that this international law is not real. After seeing what we have seen, after the bombing of hospitals, you have Israeli doctors pleading for their army to bomb more hospitals. You have doctors and nurses that are writing letters. And I'll say this, and I saw a few doctors saying this as well. Any doctor that has not called for a ceasefire after seeing the crimes Israel is doing to the healthcare system in Gaza, they should be disbarred. Israel, and I'm saying it loud on Twitter now, and I think this should be the demand of the proletariat. Will it happen? That's irrelevant. Our demand, and I know we're probably gonna make statements as RBN. It's something that we gotta discuss soon. I'm calling for, and soon maybe RBN, we are calling for the return of the Nuremberg trials. Nuremberg trials 2024, Nuremberg 2.0. That is what I am calling for right now for our organization. Every single person that is complicit with the slaughter of Palestinian children, the blatant disregard for international law, their willfulness to commit genocide, and Israeli leaders openly admitting that is their intention. That's why it's disgusting. And Biden should be included in this Nuremberg 2.0 because he told a lie. His administration continued to tell a lie that we haven't made the assessment that Israel is purposely committing war crimes. I'll show you that with Nico House on Friday. So right now, the West, and there's only a very small amount now. Israel is isolated. That's why you've seen the same propaganda we are going to cover later. That's why you see the unhinged post I'm going to show you here later of Zionists just openly come out as Nazis, openly disregarding free speech, calling for violence against their enemies because they're panicking, because they're losing the narrative. Yeah. The idea that what I just said is radical is absurd. I am using their law, CJ. The Nuremberg trials put Nazis on trial, and the message of the trials when they put Nazis on trial is just following orders is not an excuse. Remember, CJ, I was a history nerd before I got into politics. That was the line. Just following orders is not an excuse for what you guys did. And that is my position. After everything we've seen and the psychological damage that this has done on my friends, the people I know, this should be the bare minimum. So I'm calling for the return of the Nuremberg trials. And Joe Biden, who lied about this, and there's in this presentation, I'm also going to show you guys how there are people in the federal government, people in the Biden administration, that are realizing that they are being complicit with some historical shit, CJ. Historic crimes against humanity. So now they have a memo flowing around where they are condemning Biden, saying he's complicit with war crimes. because of his lies, the lies of the Biden administration and the United States government, that Israel is the most moral army. You guys see now on Fox News, the propaganda they're doing. Meanwhile, this is what Israeli leaders literally say. This is the tweet. While the world debates the legality of what Israel is doing in Gaza, Israeli leaders themselves have been crystal clear about their intent. So let's listen to this. I think this is a lot of this is not in English, so I'll translate it.
It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true.
אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק.
I remember this.
הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם.
This is the famous clip when they said we're fighting against human animals. There'll be no electricity, no food, no fuel. That's them announcing war crimes. Meanwhile, CJ, John Kirby and the Biden administration are like, we don't see any evidence. We looked into it, man. I don't know. Yeah. We had no idea what you're talking about. Meanwhile, they're literally saying we about to starve everybody. We about to kill everybody. Everyone is a Hamas. You're a Hamas, CJ. You chatting. You're watching. You're a Hamas. Your grandma's a Hamas. I'm a Hamas apparently. But let's continue. I'm gonna get to that later.
Very puzzled by the constant concern which the world is showing for the Palestinian people and is actually showing for these horrible, inhuman animals who have done the worst atrocities that this century has seen.
That's them literally saying that we don't care about millions, they're all animals.
إسرائيل فرضت إغلاق كامل على غزة.
هناك إسرائيليون يعني وصفوا الفلسطينيين في غزة وصفوهم بأنهم حيوانات بل أقل من حيوانات.
أنا لا أسويهم بالحيوانات لأن هذا تحقير للحيوانات.
He said, I do not equate Palestinians to animals because that's an insult to animals.
كدكتور مردخاي.
نعم هذا غاية.
تكسخوا אותם כמה שיותר, לא לשלם זכר. שלא הם, לא אמא שלהם, לא הילדה שלהם, לא התינוקות שלהם.
Erase their families, their mothers, and their children. Now, this is going to be the theme of this presentation, CJ. And I reject everything that Israel said without proof. I reject all their narratives. I reject everything our government says, which include what they say about our enemies. It's weird, CJ. People say, I don't trust the corporate media. I don't trust the government. But I believe everything they say about China. I know they lie about everything, except when they talk about Nicolas Maduro, except when they talk about North Korea, except when they talk about Hamas. Everything they told you guys about Hamas is a lie. Not only that, everything they told you guys about Hamas is a projection. And I want you guys to keep this in mind as we continue my presentation. Everything they tell you about Hamas is Israel. CJ, what did they tell you on Fox News? What did the right say? The right say people in Hamas, they want to kill Jewish children. They want to kill all Jews. So as they say Hamas wants to do something, you want to know what Israelis actually put in and planned in action? They say Hamas, they say mean things. Hamas say mean things about killing Jewish people. Meanwhile, Israel is out there killing Palestinians, cheering for their deaths of their children and their mothers. Everything, and you guys gonna see more examples as we continue this segment. Everything they say about Hamas applies to Israel. Every single thing. Now let's continue.
אסור להם לחיות לחיות האלה. אתה יש לך שכן ערבי, אתה לא תחכה שהוא יבוא אליך הביתה. תיכנס אליו הביתה ותירה.
I do this all the time too, so I know people that don't watch the screen, they just listen. I do that. So what this quote says on the screen for people who are just listening, the person who is a former head of the Israeli National Security Council, Gloria Elin, She says Gaza will become a place where no human being can exist.
תראה, לצורך ה... לא, אתה חושב שאנחנו יכולים להרוג מאות אלפי פלסטינים ברצועת עזה והדבר הזה יעבור?
תראה, עכשיו בתקשורת הזרה יוצאת הודעה בשם ישראל שמיליון פלסטינים כבר ירדו מדרום הרצועה דרומה, וכל מי שנשאר שם נחשב כמחבל.
He was asked a question. He like, are you guys going to kill hundreds of thousands of these people? And he like, yo, all these people already left, so we're committing ethnic cleansing against these people. See, it's hilarious. The Israelis like, these people left. We allowed these people to leave. You literally bragging about displacing millions of people? How is that a good thing, for one? Secondly, they said, well, the people who don't leave, the people who refuse to allow us to ethnically cleanse them, we're going to consider them all Hamas and them all terrorists, and we're going to kill them all. Where in international law, ladies and gentlemen, does that say that's okay? CJ, where is that ever considered okay? This is the most moral army in the world, fam.
But the thing is, let's break down just a little bit the notion of, we warned them to go, mass exodus, evacuate. Nick, you tell me, if you gave a homeless person, an unhoused person, a warning to get out of an area, how far do you think a homeless person without a car, without money to buy a bus ticket, how far do you think that person can go, Nick? But they think these Palestinians have some magical powers. Oh, we warned you 2 hours ago to get out of here. What does that do? What does that do? And to go where? To go where? When you're enclosed in a open air concentration camp. It's absurd. But go.
Not only that, when Palestinians followed the escape route, Israel was caught bombing those escape routes. So I want you guys to flee, but then when they flee, they bomb them. And also, quick question, Zionist psychopaths, how are incubator babies, for example, people with disabilities, going to leave an entire area, flee in a mass migration movement in 2-3 hours? Hint, they don't, which is why Israel just murdered multiple incubator babies. They died because they didn't have oxygen, because Israel bombed the hospital and they lost the power. So you know how they told us about Hamas executing babies? You know how they told us about the incubator babies, which led to the Iraq war? That's Israel. Every single thing they tell us about Hamas, insert any enemy, Russia and Ukraine, Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, anyone. That is what Israel is doing times 10. Sorry, let me continue. I still got quite a bit to cover. There's going to be a bit of a presentation, but this is probably going to be my one segment a day just because I got a lot to cover here. Let's continue. So if you're just listening, these are just more close to them saying we want to kill all of them. And this is the far right minister. I made a hotspot video about this guy who literally said he's down with nuking Gaza. What? That would destroy Israel too. But they just fucking insane. Let's continue. Israel MK says use doomsday weapons against Gaza. I did not see that part. Wow. There's so much stuff, guys. That's why this presentation may be a little bit long today. But I'm not including so much. There's so much receipts. And Zionists are just straight up showing the entire world who they are. Like, I can go hours just showing you guys what these people are saying. Even stuff like this is falling through the cracks. I didn't even see this headline. Did use doomsday weapons against Gaza.
Annihilate Gaza now. Now. Gaza needs to turn into a desert. Yes.
Let me read this. I haven't read this, though. It said Israel has dropped 18,000 tons of bombs on Gaza. 1.5 times more than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus Christ. Nuremberg 2.0 now. Like, Jesus. The Israeli army massacred 908 families, causing the death of thousands of people. Jesus Christ. Jesus.
הארץ שלנו. כל הארץ. כולל עזה. כולל הלבנון. כל הארץ המובטחת.
I seen this. This is when they were having a genocide prep rally, CJ. A bunch of young people got together and they sung songs about how they bombing Palestinian children. Like the most insane psychopathic Nazis. I told you, when I was a sweet summer child, CJ, I still remember how I used to feel about the world. Like I used to think like the Nazi was defeated. I thought evil was defeated. We prevailed. Black people, we've been through a lot, but there's finally sunshine around in the future. And I was a sweet summer child because of U.S. propaganda, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. So that's why when the propaganda bubble burst for me in my late teenage years, it was so jarring because of how propagandized I was. So back when I was a sweet summer child, I didn't know people like this still existed, CJ. You know what I mean? I thought people like this was relic of the past. Like people just cheering the bombing of hospitals, bombing of children. I'm not exaggerating. I'm going to shut up because I'm going a little bit too long. But I'm not exaggerating. I saw this whole video. They were cheering, having a dance song like, yeah, bomb the kids, bomb the hospitals. They all terrorists. Let's murder them. Like they had like a Sesame Street vibe to genocide, CJ. But anyway, let me continue because there's still a lot of cover. They don't show the whole thing, but that whole video is pretty unhinged. So if I did a presentation just describing all the war crimes that happened since Friday, the last time I was live here, it would take 2 hours. So I'm gonna show you just a few. You guys see how I feel. I'm not afraid that my account get banned or anything. Palestinians trying to exit Gaza Al-Shifa Hospital are being shot by Israeli forces. Doctor Without Borders report. So they tell people to flee and leave these hospitals, to evacuate the hospitals, and then as they evacuate, the Israeli army kills and executes them. The same with them fleeing and leaving Gaza. They keep doing these media tours where they're like, man, aren't we so gracious because we allow these people to leave during our genocide of their family? Aren't we so nice, CJ? And then as the people are leaving, they killing a few of them. And then they're like, nigga, if you get away with your life, good for you, bro. But nigga, we trying to thin the herd, mow the line, as we say. You know what I mean? So let's listen to the doctor. I'm going to try to get through these receipts a little bit faster. Let's go through this.
President Biden.
If you guys don't know what it is, let me read the description. It said, hear the screams in the background. So you have CJ in the corporate media is repeating this uncritically that these hospitals are secret Hamas bases. The doctors check in with Hamas. Meanwhile, all these doctors coming out like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? I've been working here for 15 years. Never seen Hamas in my life. Not only that, these doctors should be winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Because a lot of these doctors said we are not leaving. If I had to die with my patient, that's exactly what's going to fucking happen. I'm going to die with these people that Israel going to ethnically cleanse. Disasters show the most horrific part about humanity, but also show some good light of it, part of it as well. These people are true heroes, and they also fuck, by the way. There's already a doctor. I'm going to got another receipt for you guys from Democracy Now! This person was just on Democracy Now!, CJ. A doctor. Now he's killed. He's dead. We're just on Democracy Now! Like 2-3 weeks ago. Talking about the horrific crimes of Israel. Now he's dead. So this guy's probably fucked too. Now in the video, you're going to see the screams in the background, which is the result of Israeli crimes that they should pay for. Do not allow the established expectations of what's possible to stop you from demanding justice. Is a Nuremberg trial 2.0 possible? Irrelevant. That's exactly what the fuck we should call for, though. Loudly. And these are the people that are complicit. Let me get to this video.
President Biden, Mr. Blinken, Mr. Blinken, can you hear me? Prime ministers and presidents of the European countries, can you hear me? Can you hear the screams from Shifa Hospital, from Al-Auda's hospital? Can you hear the screams from innocent people, refugees sheltering, trying to find a safe place, being bombed by the Israeli attack forces this morning inside the hospital? Hospitals that are the temples of humanity and protection. When are you going to stop this? You're all complicit.
They are all complicit. Nuremberg trials 2.0. Do you guys remember, CJ, you can try and map this real quick. I got a few more things to show here. But do you guys remember when the corporate media, including Ben Shapiro, and the line was, you guys are committing blood libel for saying we're bombing hospitals? And then they proceed to bomb multiple hospitals. This last weekend was a bloodbath. You know, those same people who deny rigorously that there were no bombing hospitals, they're not only silent, they are now justifying bombing hospitals, CJ. They say these doctors are Hamas, that guy Hamas, the dead kids are Hamas, the staff is Hamas.
Yeah, everybody's Hamas.
Everyone's Hamas.
Mannequins
You're
Hamas.
Hamas. Kill Jones, thank you for the super chat. I'm sorry to break it to you. You're Hamas. Mark, you're Hamas. You're Hamas. Kristen, you're Hamas.
Oprah Winfrey.
Crabbing, you're everyone. All you guys are Hamas. This is, and I'm gonna show you guys. This is another part of my show. That is the message that is coming from Israel. We are not committing any crimes. We are the most moral army in the world. You guys are Hamas. Kayla, what are you laughing at? You're Hamas too. Let me continue because you guys see what I'm talking about later. So because of the complicity, I think Joe Biden should be part of the Nuremberg trials. People saying like, I am not going to vote for Joe Biden. That's it? That's where your statement is? That part is a duh. My statement is, put this motherfucker on trials. The trials are like we never seen before. Don't let history define what's possible. You know what I mean? Don't let the ruling class expectations, their limit of what's possible on us, limit what we should be calling for. We are living through historic times. We're seeing crazy shit that has ruined my mental health. The shit I'm seeing. And there are people who are human in the establishment who just trying to feed their kids who having a hard time going along with it. Look at this scoop. Internal State Department memo blasts Biden, U.S. policy in Israel-Hamas war. The cracks are starting. CJ, feel free to interrupt me. I know I just got this whole presentation going on, but if you want to try,
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I got something to plug in.
It's very interesting because liberals and their desire for order, their belief that the United States is always just, is being tested. We are seeing their ideology being tested. Like, CJ, this is not a test for us at all. This is like the easiest shit for us to find road to land on. Liberals are being tested, fam. Many of them are failing. We see it. Many of them are failing. A lot of them are niggas going through that same shit we went through at first. You know, when we first got right, like, I thought Biden was good. You know what I mean?
How could this be? Like looking in the mirror. You know that meme where they're looking in the mirror and you're talking to yourself?
Yeah. Dude, I swear to God, I can relate to what a lot of these people are going through. My last election to evil vote was in 2012. And these liberals are going through some shit right now. Ras, you got Hassan. Like, even with him making that statement, knowing that his audience is liberal, I may not possibly vote for Biden. They're going through some shit right now eternally. And I promise you, like maybe 2 years, maybe a year or so, there's going to be some weird faith turns, CJ. There's going to be some people that, not the majority, but there's going to be some people that after this tragedy, they're going to come out the other side. We like, do you believe that blank actually fucking now is preaching the truth about imperialism? Yeah. We see who.
I'm hoping to see that.
we saw, I don't think it will be Anna. I'll be clear. I don't think it's going to be her. But you already saw what you say. I'm done with the voting Biden shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got no faith in Anna at all, but you guys are already starting to see this. You know what I mean? It's gonna be very interesting to watch. So let me read this article. An internal State Department dissent memo accuses Biden of spreading misinformation on the Israel-Hamas war. And there's so many examples. They go through a few of them. One of them that they got really pissed at is Biden just straight out denying the Palestinian death count. Remember when Biden smeared the Gaza Health Ministry? When he did that, once again, these liberal people were like, what the fuck? I thought Trump would do that. Like, not all these people are bad faith. This is my maybe naive brain speaking, but not all these liberals are bad faith. You know what I mean? Maybe they really had Trump derangement syndrome. They really believe that Trump was the worst of them all. So now they're saying Biden, they're like, what? They're like going through shit. They're figuring out what was really going on in politics right now. We know who's good faith. We know who's not. That's my positive assessment of what's going on. You know what I mean? Let me continue. So they accuse Biden of spreading misinformation on the Israel-Hamas war and alleges that Israel is committing war crimes in Gaza. And they say it's a scathing 5-page memo. And one of the people who organized this, I'm gonna show you guys this receipt because I remember we shared this at the time as well. The person who organized this was a State Department employee who accused Biden of committing genocide. So good for this liberal, because once again, this is a liberal who's going through some shit, CJ. Like, maybe I may be giving them too much benefit of doubt. I will acknowledge that, but this liberal's going through shit. Like, I became a Democrat because I thought Trump was going to do some genocide. I thought it was good. Now, so this is one of the ones that's like, no, all right, Biden, you committed genocide. My career might be over for this, but I'm going hard. He goes so hard that he apparently organized this memo, which was signed, and this is where the positive part of the story kind of ends. I want to keep this kind of lighthearted, but only 100 State Department officials seems like a lot. It should be way more, right? Considering the thousands of people in the State Department, and including you said employees as well. So it should be way more. But it's still good to see the cracks starting to form in the federal government over this. You even seeing, even though MSNBC content is still largely unhinged, you're seeing the smartest among them starting to pull back on their earlier rhetoric.
It's a night and day difference between. I remember when it first happened, October 8th. Go back to October 8th, Nick. We had a show, or maybe we had a show somewhere around there. We were like, man, I can't even watch this shit on TV. I can't get through 30 seconds of it. Like, it's unbearable to watch from minute to start to the second at the end. It was all pro-Israel, just propaganda. It was unbearable to compare what it is now. It's almost like a radical change, but it's still not where it needs to be. It's still far from where it needs to be, but it's still much different. The pressure, the protests, all of that is showing up. The poll numbers declining, it's showing up in their adjustment in their rhetoric. But continue, Nick.
Look at this. Some of the memo's language echoes that of progressive activists in the U.S. whose anger and protest over Biden's handling of the war have rippled through the Democratic Party. Remember, liberals are going through some shit. And created a new challenge for the president's 2024 campaign. So even as a reporter, did you guys see the difference between Axios and RBN? Oh my God, what are the implications of Biden's campaign? Nigga, we don't give a fuck about that. I'm going for Nuremberg. So even as he writes a decent article, you guys see how the establishment brain is still there. Stuff like that, like it rings so loud to me. Maybe I'm petty, but stuff like that rings so loud to me. I'll just read a few more of these bullet points and I move on. Without offering a specific example, the memo accuses Biden of spreading misinformation on his October 10th speech. Once again, the writer, you lied. They actually did bring examples. For example, Biden down the death count of the Palestinians. Biden spreading the lie that Hamas the hospitals in Palestine are ran by Hamas. That's what Biden said in his October 7th speech as well, which they strongly condemned. But you guys see how they wrote the article without offering a specific example. They offer quite a few. Anyway, let me continue. The memo accused Biden of spreading misinformation in his October 10th speech, supporting Israel, one of the signature addresses of his presidency. And this part is what everyone needs to remember, the part in here. The memo also said that we strongly recommend that the United States government advocate for the release of hostages by both Hamas and Israel. They cited the thousands of Palestinians being held in Israel, many of them without charge. Many of them including children. I did a hotspot about that, explaining this.
Children.
I think I can move on to the next part here. They pretty much call out all the war crimes. Pretty much a memo that obviously they still trying to be nice because they're like, Biden, you shouldn't be helping Israel committing these war crimes. But this is Biden, and you guys are listing reasons why Biden is complicit with a genocide. You see that they're talking about including cutting off electricity. Let me read this one here. Biden has backed Israel's response while expressing concern about humanitarian issues in Gaza, but the memo says Biden should do more to question Israel's actions, which is 100% true, because Israel would say, hey, guys, we are doing our best to avoid civilian deaths. Then John Kirby and Biden said, hey, man, we talked to Israel. They assured us that they're doing the best to prevent civilian deaths. Like, that's completely contradictory to the fact that you guys just bombed the hospital. That you guys are bombing fleeing refugees. So maybe don't just repeat what Israel say and actually do a critical analysis on whether what they say is true or not. Like this one. Let me move on. There's still quite a bit of cover here. And I've been calling this out from day one, and everyone will repeat this as truth, that Israel is bombing these hospitals because they got secret tunnels in them. So despite all these hospitals being leveled, destroyed, bombed, how many pictures have you guys seen in the UK media and US media of pictures exposing these these tunnel systems? If the United States propaganda machine had evidence to their claims, they will show you.
Nick, this is a question.
Go ahead, CJ.
This is a question. How is it, because it goes with what you're saying here, how is it in all the evidence, how is it that we're able to produce so much evidence of civilian deaths where we can see their bodies, but you can't produce any evidence of a physical Hamas death? Show me the body that you're saying you can kill all these hundreds of people for this one. They're not even showing us that. And then, I don't know if you noticed, Nick, they took the death toll for the supposed October 7th attack from 1,400 to 1,200. I don't know if you noticed that. Just 200 people just magically came alive, I guess, Nick. I don't know if you saw that, but they downgraded the death toll for the October 7th blast. But go ahead.
Yeah, and wait till we learn the truth about October 7th, fam. Wait till we learn the truth. But we're seeing the same propaganda repeat itself. And as I said before, this is the reason why we get stuff right. The reason why I'm able to see this stuff coming, because they repeat the same tactics. If the empire and the propaganda machine can't show you evidence of their claims, it's false. Do you think they got evidence they're not showing you with the weapon? We know they got weapon of mass destruction, but we can't show you for reasons. Bashar al-Assad gassed his own people in Syria. But we're not going to show you the people gas. We're not going to show you any evidence of that. Just believe us. And that was people like Aaron Matei and many people who were debunking the Syria gassing at the time said, they're like, if people was gassed, CJ, they show signs on their dead body of death by being gassed. Yeah. They weren't showing any autopsy reports. There was no evidence of dead bodies via gassing. They just said, oh, just believe us. And I swear to God, this has been a true tenet my entire life following this shit. If they don't show you this shit, it's not real. The Hamas tunnels, the Hamas facilities and hospitals, they haven't shown you one of them. And I've been watching all of us. We probably watched an unhealthy amount of corporate propaganda at this point. Never seen them like, hey, we know for a fact that Hamas got these tunnels. Here's the photos. This is the system, how it's set up. Now here's a history lesson. You guys know I love history here, right? So you guys remember this, how they repeat the same shit over and over again. This is Bin Laden's mountain fortress. And I remember this actually as a kid. I don't know if you remember this, CJ. Do you guys remember hearing about Bin Laden's fortress? Completely made up. Complete bullshit. So let me read the tweet. Bin Laden's mountain fortress, a pure fiction full of made-up details, was presented 20 years ago. War propagandists reassured us that our adversaries are hopelessly backwards, but at the same time, they are all powerful and should be feared. So, CJ, do you guys understand how ridiculous their claims are? At the same time, Hamas can only fire these refurbished rockets from Israel that has no power. They have no air force. They
Right.
mock about fumbling infrastructure projects, but at the same time, they are able to create advanced underground tunnel systems like we've never seen before. How does anyone believe this? And I remember that too. I saw that bit not too long ago where Family Guy made fun of it. Yeah, they'll make fun of
they and everybody. They ain't talking about no Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle tunnels. Okay,
yeah,
they talking about some serious tunnels. Is the claim? But go ahead, Nick.
I still remember. The funny thing is, I still remember. For the second time, I'm not gonna read this, but if you look at this picture, there are all these weirdly specific examples. And they doing the same thing. They like, you know, in Hamas, they got these resources. They're just making up shit. They're just writing a script. Where are the pictures? Where's the pictures? So once you had a sweet summer child who didn't know how badly government and media lied to you, like I was like, oh man, these motherfuckers got tunnels and shit. But I was like 12. So if you believe this, just know you at the same intellectual level I was when I was 12 years old, when I thought something like this was possible. Let me move on. This is more embarrassing. We get into the embarrassing Israeli propaganda segment of this. We got a big chunk into this. So I'll explain to you guys how everything Israel say about Hamas is a projection on themselves, and their propaganda, despite how outward they lie, there's a reason why I still say the United States is the most propagandized country in the world. Because the United States has the most sophisticated, advanced version of propaganda. Israel has been lost the world, CJ. The only thing that protects Israel is the U.S. veto power and the fact that the United States will always arm and protect them. So, unlike the United States, Israel got lazy. So that's why I don't rank Israel as propagandized as America, because everyone sees through it. You got fucking Israelis. I got this receipt. I may get to or not. Israelis getting beat by their own government because they protesting this war. These motherfuckers are programmed from day one, CJ, to believe in Zionist bullshit, and they still like, nigga, I don't believe in this shit. There's a receipt I'm gonna show you guys later. This person was arrested because they simply said on social media, we need to pray for the Gazan people. So Israel propaganda is lazy. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna show you guys this here. This is the Israeli president. I see. I know you want to cover this as well. So I know.
I don't know if you want me to insert it here, but I just have a longer clip. It's like 5 minutes.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Go ahead, CJ. Go ahead, CJ.
So, I mean, no, but after this though, because I was gonna play this clip and then play that next clip. So go ahead with this one first.
Yeah. Get the clip ready, because this part of my segment, I think this we can excuse me, blend a few of our parts here, because the part of this point of this part of the segment is about just lazy, bad Israeli propaganda. They know they lost the world. They know that they have to rely on violent authoritarianism, censorship, to oppose the regime. So because of this, they got lazy. They're not sophisticated, and they say shit that even the dumbest, most brainwashed sweet summer children should be able to see through. So, for example, this is their president. They say they found Mein Kampf in a children's living room with no marks on it. I'm sure a lot of you guys seen it, but let me play it, and then I'll get your reaction, CJ. And you can chime in for
hundreds of thousands of people supporting by their demonstrations, supporting Hamas. I want to show you something exclusive, Laura. So this is Adolf Hitler's book, translated to Arabic, Mein Kampf. It's the book that led to the Holocaust and the book that led to World War II. This is the book that led to his victory in elections in Germany, which led to the worst atrocity of humankind, which the British fought against. Well, this book was found just a few days ago in northern Gaza in a children's living room, which was turned into a military operation base of Hamas. On one of the...
Bro, CJ, the world is watching this shit with a jaw on the floor. Like, this is the most amateur propaganda ever. They think, who the fuck is falling for this?
This sounds like literally like either a television or movie pitch for an episode of the A-Team. They take a house and they turn it into some operation center. That sounds like the A-Team. Come on, sir. But go ahead.
I can see Xi Jinping is texting Putin like, nigga, do you see this amateur ass shit they doing over this? And then Xi Jinping like, nigga, that shit was fucking embarrassing, bro. Bro, you got leaders all over Africa, nigga, they all over Brazil. Look, not all these people are good people. Like, you got people in Africa, Brazil, you got authoritarians, you got propagandists watching this shit like, nigga, Israel is amateur. What is this? This is cartoonish. Like, I thought this was a parody account when I first saw this shit. I thought this was a parody account. Like, if you were trying to imitate what Israel does to make them look bad, this is what would be displayed. So let me continue this. Bro, Twitter had a field day with this. And I'm sure that Zionists just pretend they don't see this, CJ. I don't know how people who are on the wrong side of shit cope. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the same way people support Ukrainian Nazis, they just, I'm gonna look away. So are the Zionists, they just ignoring this?
That's what they do.
Ignore this blatant lie, but let me continue.
On the body of one of the terrorists and murderers of Hamas, and he even he wrote notes,
good detailed notes for you guys.
Adolf Hitler's
perfectly maintained.
He added footnotes.
Just in case you guys didn't understand, I'm gonna tell you exactly how I feel. Perfect condition.
The ideology of hating the Jews, of killing the Jews, of burning the Jews, of slaughtering the Jews. This is the real warrior act. So all those who demonstrated yesterday, I'm not saying that all of them support Hitler, but all I'm saying is by omitting to understand what Hamas ideology is all about, they're basically supporting this ideology.
There will be many people who were on this.
What do you
clown shit? Clown shit. So let me bring up to piggyback off of this interview. You think you might say, the president of Israel, Nick, he had a bad day. Everybody has a bad interview, Nick. Everybody has a bad interview, including I had a bad interview. Some people might say the interview I did with Jen and she cut me off her show. Maybe that you consider that my bad interview. You might consider the Marianne Williamson when Rome and I came in. That's a bad interview. So everybody has one. This guy has multiple bad interviews. Here is the same guy on Face the Nation. We're not going to play all of it. It's a 10-minute clip, but we're only going to play. We're going to rage quit. Put it that way, Nick. We're going to rage quit probably around 4 minutes.
So it works fine. So
yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. So yeah, let's listen.
We turn now to the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, who joins us from Jerusalem. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good morning, Margaret.
Your country lost 1,200 of its civilian citizens on October the 7th. And I know
I thought it was 1,400
from that. But what?
Bro, that number is going to shrink and shrink fast.
Yeah.
Because now the reports I'm hearing is that around two-thirds of the people that Hamas killed was military personnel. And then the remaining 1/3 are undetermined. And that means the people that the Israeli army killed.
I was just about to say that.
And also Hamas said there were civilians that was murdered, but these are civilians that was armed and they fought the army. And so the army fought back, the Hamas people fought back and they killed them. So guys, everything you were told about October 7th, which there was a lot of human suffering and tragedy, I acknowledge that. But a lot of things you were told about it was bullshit, including the Apache helicopter that was released. So you guys know this number is slowly going down according to the establishment. But let's continue.
Yeah, and just to give her credit, I was watching another segment where she acknowledged that. It might have been earlier in this.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, yeah, it went from 1,400 to 1,200, and you see it here where she's now using the 1,200 number. But let's get back to the clip.
What we're seeing in Gaza right now with Hamas and this concentration of very intense fighting around Al-Shifa hospital, if that is indeed Hamas's command center, Does that mean this war ends if you take control of it?
Well, the war we've taken on against Hamas is a war which matters to the entire well-being and safety of the world, I would say. And therefore, our main aim at this stage, following the atrocities we've gone through on October 7th, is to uproot the capability of Hamas. It doesn't end in Shifa Hospital. They're based all throughout Gaza.
I know you have personally met with many of the families of the roughly 240 hostages being held by Hamas and other terror groups. Can you explain why Israel is reportedly now considering releasing Palestinian women and children from your prisons in exchange for some of these hostages held by Hamas?
I don't want to give any illusions. Qatar is trying to mediate, so is Egypt, in order to get a humanitarian release of some of the hostages. We demand all the hostages. That's the worldwide demand. But there are talks, of course, behind the scenes. I cannot confirm any details. What I can say is that there's nothing substantial right now on the table. The United States is also heavily involved in this, so there's nothing tangible that I can report.
I ask because in the past...
Now, I do have to say this, and just because I do production, I can tell this is not a linear interview. They've cut this up. These are not natural breaks like when it goes to her, so I can tell that this is they made this pretty this up, I guess, is what they did. But listen to what he says here. I'm going to rewind in 15 seconds just so you can listen to what he says here.
Confirm any details. What I can say is that there's nothing substantial right now on the table. The United States is also heavily involved in this, so there's nothing.
The United States is also heavily involved in this, and he's talking about the hostages exchange. And why I wanted to stop it here. Now, you mentioned earlier, she said, Nick, yeah, we know about the 200 and some odd Israeli hostages. And then 30 seconds later, she acknowledges that Israel has hostages too. Why didn't she bring that up? Exactly. Why they never bring up the Palestinian hostages? Maybe this was a Freudian slip. Maybe she didn't mean to do that, but she acknowledges that they have hostages too.
CJ, now think about that contradiction, right? Because what you hear from Democrat, a Zionist Democrat, the Biden administration, Zionists and right-wingers, they are justifying everything Israel does under the premise that they're doing it to free their hostages, that they can do whatever they want as long as Hamas got hostages. So what does that mean in terms of Hamas resisting Israel, who have thousands of Palestinian hostages, including many of them who wasn't charged, many children, many of them who've been tortured? So based on their logic, Hamas have every right to do October 7 times 10. You know what I mean? You got their own logic defeats them. That's the funny part. Let's continue.
Yeah, and what I don't understand, and many people have made this point, it seems like what they're doing is counterproductive to what they want to do. Like if you want a colonial state, what you're doing is counterproductive to that, which is why I don't understand. And maybe another part of the segment will answer that, because there is an article, or there's rumblings, I don't know if you heard it, Nick, that it feels like Israel is trying to bait this into a regional war so that it forces the U.S. to enter this.
Yeah, that's
the only way to force U.S. to enter this is to bait this into a regional war, bring Hezbollah into this, bring Iran into this, so that the U.S. has to enter this. And that's
not surprising, because they're not surprising because that's been the state of go-to-lucky party for quite a long time. You guys, they have deep criticisms, especially of Obama, of being quote-unquote too soft on Iran. And you had Natalie Bennett. I reported on this around 2 years ago, because I did a profile about him when he rose to power. And at one point he said, if the United States don't support our war on Iran, there's a certain point where we're just going to do it on our own. Fuck them. Like he said, like they just say that out in the open. He like, our pensions weren't thin. So that's why Benjamin Netanyahu is getting ripped to shreds. He even getting Zionist criticism over their intelligence failure over October 7th. because we got our new 9/11 now, because now there's a lot of chatter over IDF actually knowing more than they let on, and they let October 7th happen. They was waiting for any sort of Hamas retaliation, which also explains why they had escalated their attack on mosques. Why 2022 was the most deadly year in Palestinian history, because the IDF and Israel wanted this big retaliation from Hamas. And then when they got intel on October 7th, they didn't do anything to stop it, because they're like, yeah, this is our chance to get the regional war with Iran, with Hezbollah, with all these people that we've been wanted. And the Biden administration is more happy to go along with this, because the Biden administration threatened Iran with bombing and war if their proxies in Syria and Iraq continue to attack U.S. soldiers that is illegally occupying Syria and Iraq. Anyway, I did a segment on that already, but so go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, just a couple more minutes, and then another quick clip, and I'm going to pass it back to you for if you want to go back to the
and hails terror cannot be a partner, and we've seen the atrocious results.
I understand, and the United States of America considers Hamas to be a terrorist organization and has for decades. They're very clear on that. But as you just mentioned,
I just had to make this point because she says that. I just got to make this point because I continue to push back. If Hamas is a terrorist organization, what does that make Israel in the United States? And I've been asking people this question on Twitter. Why? Give me a direct reason why you label Hamas as terrorists. What would they say, CJ? Well, Hamas is different because they go after civilians. I'm like, okay, you really want to go down that route? Are you sure? Well, Hamas, they launch illegal attacks on terror. Oh, do you really want to go down this route? They launch rockets. Do you want to go down this route? Like, there's no accusation against Hamas, whether true or untrue, that does not apply to Israel. You want to know the only difference is? Hamas has the international legal right to resist their occupier, while Israel does not have that right. So I keep pressing this and asking these questions. But people who love law and order, they don't have an answer to these things. All of a sudden, all about fields now. So my question to these people who keep calling Hamas a terrorist organization, I will continue to push back against them unless they say, yeah, I think Hamas is a terrorist organization, but I think the United States is terrorist. I think Israel is terrorist too. But I promise you, that don't exist. That don't exist. But go ahead, CJ.
Who is there any other body that labels Hamas a terrorist organization, like the UN, like I just can't think of any other place. And so the question becomes, so are we supposed to go, if the United States say they're terrorists, that makes it, even if the rest of the world does not acknowledge that?
Do you guys realize there are countless countries that don't acknowledge Israel? Like, I'll pull the list. I don't have the list memorized. Maybe I should Google it. But there's many countries that don't acknowledge Israel's existence. They acknowledge Palestine. They acknowledge that Palestine is occupied. China, there's criticism of China because they do business with Israel. But the position of China is that Israel is not a legitimate state. They are occupiers of Palestine. Now, there's legitimate criticism, I believe, of China because they're kind of hypocritical on that because they still do business with Israel despite that being their state position. But there are a lot of countries that don't acknowledge it. It's only like a Western creation. I wish I had to listen for me. I acknowledge I don't know on top of my head. But go ahead, CJ. I'll pass back to you.
Yeah, that is one of the criticisms I do have of China and Xi Jinping is that I get the non-interventionist, but there has to be a humanitarian red line for that. Yeah. There has to be like, yeah, I don't want to be a cultural imperialist. Do what you want to do. But if you're slaughtering kids, no. Now, this is not a warlike stance. This is we need to go in and save human life stance. So I do have a different opinion on that.
I see this article I put up. I see this article I put. I don't have to share it, but I see 36 countries that don't recognize Israel. I'll just read you that stand out. You got a large amount of the Arab countries: Afghanistan, Algeria, Bangladesh, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya. You got tons of people near Israel that like, we don't acknowledge you, bro. Somalia, Syria, the UAE, North Korea, based North Korea. I knew that because North Korea had long ties with the Palestinian people. Once again, remember everything you know about North Korea is a lie, by the way. But anyway, I don't want to stay too long on this.
Yeah.
But there's not a consensus on Israel. And these are the people that flat out don't acknowledge them. There are a lot of people that has in the China position that they are legal settlers. But I'll continue. I don't want to derail too much, but let's continue.
States of America considers Hamas to be a terrorist organization and has for decades. They're very clear on that. But as you just mentioned, you have long been an advocate for peace with the Palestinians. But there are many in the current government who before October 7th were not and do not favor 2 states for 2 people. Do you still believe that is the way ultimately to have peace?
Why would anybody agree right now to any progress with our neighbors when we don't see truly their ability to fight terror? And many of them, including those in Gaza, are hailing and smiling and celebrating in the most atrocious way the world's greatest atrocity almost since.
I don't know anybody in Gaza celebrating. I know of many of them that are dying and killed. He trying to act like they like running through the streets celebrating in Gaza, Nick. Is this serious? This is serious, but let's continue.
World War II. May I also add and tell you that part of the whole issue is that it's kind of a culture that celebrates these awful atrocities. These atrocities cannot be accepted in any way. It means it has.
So I've explained this many times before, but there's a culture in Israel where they would picnic and camp near in views where they can see Israel bombing into Gaza, into Palestine, and it become a cultural spectacle. It's an event. Yeah. Oh, we're bombing the Palestinians again. They get picnic, they get some beers, they get to go as a family, they bring the kids along. It's a great time. First time they get to witness a genocide. Grandpa's seen a few of them. First time you get to see a genocide, Billy. You know, so everything they accuse Hamas of having this culture of wanting to kill Jews is Israel. You guys will see later in my presentation, if I get a chance to show you, what they accuse Hamas of is Israel, where they have social media accounts just dancing and celebrating dead children. But I'll let you continue. Go ahead, CJ.
Nick, you know what this eerily sounds like? White people attending the hanging of people in the United States. Eerily sounds like. And then you know what both was going on at the same time? A colonial project. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Go ahead.
That's why there's a long time solidarity between Palestinian and Black people. Remember the Palestinian I interviewed that I showed on my show? Which she's like, bro, there's connections all over the Israel-Palestine issue, including racism. Zionism is connected to white supremacy.
She was great.
Like, she was great, man. She was.
Yeah, I loved her. She was great. Yeah, I wish we can bring her on. If you got her contact,
we gotta bring her on. By the way, big announcement. I'm having Ashley. She was from the Palestinian Network. She bring on quite a few Palestinian activists on. So that's gonna we're gonna have like a mini Palestinian summit.
Mega summit. That's cool. Or mini summit, I meant to say. That's
we aiming for Wednesday, but she coordinated schedule. We already had to move it back before, so it tended Wednesday, but shit, we see. So big shout out to Ashley. She coming through. I told Ashley like she like shy. I'm like, bring your ass back on. You like turn this place on fire last time. She's like, man, I don't know if I can really do. I'm like, bro, are you serious? But anyway, let's get back to the segment. I got some good Palestinian.
We loved her on camera. She's great on camera. She's
like still shy for some reason. Like, anyway, let's continue.
It has nothing to do with the conflict. It has nothing to do with the borders, with settlements or anything. This is simple, clear barbarism, Jew hate, other hate, which is advocated by ISIS, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, which if we weren't here, then Europe will be next, and probably the United States is the end game for all of them.
Like, that's such a ridiculous concept that you go to somebody's house, you're the intruder, and them fighting back, and then you're gonna tell the police if he gets me out of his house, an intruder, he's just gonna go to his neighbor house and take over their house and take over. Yeah. It's like, what? That makes zero sense whatsoever. But I do want to show another short clip. It's about 90 seconds. This one, Nick, is of Ted Cruz. And I'm almost sure you haven't seen this one. This is why I want to make sure I show you. Yeah, this is why I want to make sure I show you this clip. And so this is Ted Cruz. He's on one of the weekend shows. So yesterday I was looking at all the weekend shows. That's how I came across this. This is his input.
Making sacrifice for the squad, bro. Making sacrifice for the squad, but let's continue.
Yeah. I'm always, my ears perk up anytime they use the word Marxist on Fox News.
Yeah.
So my ears perked up on that. And I just want to play this little 90-second. It's not really a major segment. It's just something I thought would be funny to show you.
My view is real simple. Israel is correct, absolutely justified in eliminating Hamas and killing the terrorists. And the Biden administration needs to stop giving billions of dollars to terrorists who want to murder us. Now, what we're seeing here at home, Maria, is heartbreaking. We're seeing this rabid anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Yep.
And I got to say, it's a manifestation of exactly what my new book, Unwoke, is all about.
sure
because
is.
it
Bro,
explains
you're the one who's using
cultural
wokeism.
I like to continue. I'll share my thoughts afterward, but this is the point that Glenn is going to hammer home. I'm gonna show you guys that later. But the same people who criticize liberals for wokeism, they are now pushing woke imperialism. Like, anyway, let's continue. I'll share my full thoughts on this. I'm interested in seeing this. I haven't seen it, so I'll wait.
campuses. Yep. And I got to say, it's a manifestation of exactly what my new book, Unwoke, is all about.
sure
because
is.
it explains cultural Marxism. You know, Karl Marx viewed the world as an inevitable conflict between oppressors and victims. And he put it in socioeconomic terms: the owners of capital versus the proletariat, the working men and women. And the solution Marx advocated is the violent revolution of the proletariat to forcibly overthrow the so-called oppressors and use government to redistribute the wealth. Well, I describe in the...
When I heard that, I was like, wow, he is actually talking Marxism on Fox News.
No, I'm glad he showed this, CJ.
And you know what this proves, Nick? No, I'm sorry to step over you, but you know what this proves? You know who the top studiers of Karl Marx? Capitalists. They know that shit backwards and forwards. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead with your...
No, to your point, this is why I don't do the thing where I pretend the ruling class is dumb, man. These motherfuckers are well studied. They study techniques that the generations before them did to uphold the power of the ruling class. They learn oppression techniques. They learn propaganda techniques. And more importantly than anything else, they study their enemy. Who's the number one enemy of the ruling class? Revolutionaries, Marxist revolutionaries, not the bullshit right-wing populists. You guys see now they fell off. But the true enemy are the people who criticize the structure in which your corruption is even possible, Ted. The capitalist system allows these worms to grow and become powerful politicians. So of course, Ted Cruz studied from the people who came before him. He studies his enemy, and that's why we should study our enemy. That's why we do propaganda segment. You gotta see exactly what your enemy thinks, so you know how to approach them. So despite how dumb they pretend they are, when you see segments where they lie about socialism, communism, that's exactly what it is. It's a lie. They know what it is. When you see Laura Ingraham, Ben Shapiro, all these unhinged right wingers openly lie about what Marxism and communism is, you think they don't know what they're doing? They're following the techniques. They're following the steps to wage war against their true enemy. So I'm glad you showed this. It's a great, very interesting, but let's continue.
Yeah, so I'll rewind it 15 seconds just so we can get the full sentence instead of fragmented. So here we go.
Of capital versus the proletariat, the working men and women. And the solution Marx advocated is the violent revolution of the proletariat to forcibly overthrow the so-called oppressors and use government to redistribute the wealth. Well, I describe in the book on Woke how the Marxists in the 60s and 70s began infiltrating universities. It began mutating.
I'm sorry, but real
I
quick,
gotta say, there are a lot of just...
it's hard. It's only 90 seconds, but it's hard. Go ahead.
Are there any conservatives out there that are principled? Are there any rednecks that is watching this and they hear what Ted Cruz say and they like, and that sounds like the goddamn Second Amendment to me? I thought you guys was all about rising up against a corrupt government. So the whole time Ted Cruz was speaking there, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we want. Like he actually not strawmanning us here. That's exactly what we want. We want a revolution. Shouldn't you guys be for this? Like I'm talking about the poor white working class person who you guys tell us that we should be so connected with too. And I have a lot of class solidarity with these people. But when they hear this part, why aren't they like, damn, I thought Marx was bad. Apparently Marx understands the American dream and Second Amendment. I just wonder if there are any rednecks that actually had that thought while you were saying that. I'll let it continue.
Because to your point, if you're listening to that, because he gave it very basic one sentence sort of description. The world is separated between oppressed and oppressors. And how did he put it? He put it in economic terms, owners and workers.
Yeah.
Like he is helping to simplify what Marxism is. It's like owners and workers, and we're being oppressed. You mean to tell me that workers don't feel oppressed? You're not seeing all the strikes that's happening, Nick? So absolutely, there has to be. I have such belief in humanity, Nick, even within our white working class who sometimes vote for Donald Trump. I have to believe, because the working part is the same. Forget all the culture warriors, the culture war stuff. The same, I need food on the table. I need to pay my bills. The same thing it's the same. So yes, we feel oppressed. Ted Cruz, and they'll be like, wait a minute, who is this Marx that got a based ass freaking analysis of my life right now?
Because they think Marx is about control. Like, isn't what he described the exact opposite of what you think it is? That's a call for liberation. It's a call for freedom for the ruling class. There's nothing more free than having the dictatorship of the proletariat, of us having the means of the control of the means of production. But I don't want to lecture you guys. Let's continue.
Yeah, let's listen to a little more. It's about to end.
Plain Jane liberals across the country that are wondering, why is the left right now between the squad and universities so viciously anti-Semitic? And the reason is, for the radical left, they have decided that Jews are the oppressors and Palestinians are the victims, which is why they support the violent revolution of the victims, even though, look, Hamas targeted civilians, raped and murdered women and children, and deliberately slaughtered infants.
Yeah. Senator, thank you for your work.
It almost felt like she wanted to get him out of here the whole time. Right there. It almost felt like she wanted to get him out of here. But you hear the nonsense that he's spreading. And it's now, understand, he's on a book tour. That's why they're even getting in these interviews with him to ask him these questions. He's on a book tour. The name of his book is something like The Unwoke. He's capitalizing on, he's a culture warrior. So he's capitalizing on that. But I had to show you this clip because it indicates, again, like what we already said, these people know exactly. This speaks to now. Now, do you think Cop City is just a happenstance?
Yep.
Do you think Cop City is just a happenstance when they're telling you they know exactly the progression of this? People are going to get fed up and there's going to be a violent revolution and they're preparing for it. It's all connected. But go ahead, Nick, if you want to.
Another part of my segment describing how the United States is they are trying to mimic the culture of Zionism, the fascism of Zionism. The people who stood up against free speech, they are now the ones who are now pushing for censorship because Zionists are pushing for it. They're now saying, campus schools and universities, what are you guys are doing to censor people? That's the unhinged Zionist propaganda coming out. Now, I'm going to show you guys how, and this is the theme I'm covering, like how everything they tell you about Hamas is actually projection. And there's a coordinated strategy to try to tie Hamas to Nazis. But despite this, and this is how you know Israel propagandists are amateurs. Like, I'm looking at this like, bro, you guys are really bad at this. So as they're trying to tie Hamas to Nazis, you also have Zionists that are also doing Nazi apologia. They are doing propaganda for Nazis, trying to tie Arabs as the real Nazis. They're trying to tie Hamas, trying to make the case that Hamas is worse than Nazism. So look at this unhinged, look, American-born Israeli. I call that a colonizer. That's a long way to say you're a colonizer, sir. Look at this. This is unbelievable. He said the comparisons of Hamas to Nazis is understandable, but what people don't realize is that it's wholly inadequate. While the Nazis committed unspeakable atrocities in a wholesale manner, it's well documented that the SS troops doing this knew how deeply troubling it was. What they were doing, they binge drink as a coping mechanism as they had rampant moral issues, but they did what they did. So what Rothman is doing right now is humanizing the Nazis and making the argument that the Nazis are better and superior to Hamas, who's everywhere, by the way. Now look at this. The difference with Hamas is that they committed many similar atrocities, but they were gleeful about it. So Hamas, the people who are resisting their colonizers, are now worse than Nazis, according to the people who the Nazis slaughtered. And I'm showing you guys this for a reason, because there's a coordinated propaganda campaign going on where these people saying, yeah, I know we're saying Hamas is Nazis, but actually Hamas is worse than Nazis. So what they're doing is whitewashing Nazism. And the rest of this unhinged tweet is a racist diatribe explaining why everyone in Gaza is Hamas. All of them must die. I'll read a little bit more. I don't know. I don't want to read the whole thing. Like this, as you keep reading, it gets more unhinged. First, I'm going to apologize for the Nazis, and then I'm going to explain to you guys why everyone in Gaza deserves to die. He said, and don't forget about, I'll start from here. The difference with Hamas is that they committed many similar atrocities, but they were gleeful about it, calling their parents with pride about what they'd done. For the Hamas monsters, it was a moment of celebrations. And don't forget the Gazans. There are many innocent in the population, but that didn't stop many Gazan citizens who weren't members of the Hamas from gleefully stomping on the naked body of a now dead Jewish German girl who'd been taken from a music festival. Many of you cannot fathom these things because it's not something most Western minds can relate to. I love that subtle shit right there. The Western mind can't relate to how these monsters. He explained how from the earliest days they've been taught to hate Jews. They were taught to drink Jew blood. He explained how there's I'm summing up what they say. I don't got time to read all of it. He explain how their entire society is evil. Back in the 70s, Gaza was a total shithole. And then he put the propaganda stuff. He get ratio for Oblivion for this. Like, bro, Oblivion. 5 million views, 2,000 comments, only like 400 likes. I'll just read this tweet and I'll move on. He said, my family wasn't tortured and killed by Nazis for dumbass Americans to come online and whitewash Nazism because they hate the Palestinians so much more. This is Holocaust revisionism. This is ahistorical. It's disgusting. And it's an insult to everyone who survived the Nazis. So what he said here is on point because now these new colonizers, these Israeli Americans, the people who feel such a deep connection to Israel, but they live in Brooklyn. See John, what you realize, and this guy nails it, they view and hate Palestinians more than Nazis, and that is literally what his tweet saying. Why is that? Because Nazism and Zionism are the same. They come from the same colonial genocidal roots. So Zionists feel more kinship with the Nazi than the Western colonizers, than they will ever with the Palestinians. And that's what he's saying here. Now, here's part of the segment where Israel is claiming that everyone is a Hamas. You're a Hamas, CJ. Everyone's a Hamas. Hamas are Nazis. And if you was alive, when you want to kill all the Nazis and those Nazi civilians, well, you would do the same thing in our booth. So we got to remember that Hamas is Nazis and we got to kill Hamas. Now, this is a great reporting by Dan Cohen showing how everything they're telling you about Hamas is a lie. It is a lie. They are using Hamas, including the Biden administration. Every single UK politician I have seen, they're using Hamas as a shield so they can commit a genocide and ethnically cleanse the Palestinian people. Hamas is a substitute. That's why I've tried my absolute best. You guys know I don't say Israel-Hamas war. I say the genocide of the Palestinians. This is not an Israel-Hamas war. Hamas is the fill-in. The target and the goal is to cleanse Gaza. To kill as many Palestinians as possible to make up for the fact that the IDF was embarrassed. They're using Hamas because they can get people to hate Hamas. Here's an example. You had the Israeli media outlet Channel 10 who published these photos of Palestinian captives in Gaza, and they claimed there was a Hamas terrorist. Meanwhile, you had this person here who immediately recognized 5 of them as family members.
Oh, God, these people.
So this is what everyone in Western media just repeated uncritically.
Israel not going after civilians. They go after Hamas. Meanwhile, Palestinian Americans and other Palestinians are looking at these people and they go, know him. What the fuck what are you talking about? So don't call it if you can. I know it may be hard because sometimes we read in the media or whatever. Try not to call it the Israel-Hamas war. I try my best not to. Hopefully I do a good job on it. But it's not that. It's the Israel genocide and slaughter of the Palestinian people. Now, this is fucking insanity. Like, this is, I almost couldn't believe my eyes, and 16.6 million people couldn't either. If you guys want to know why Israel is losing the war on public opinion, I need to speed this up, but you got many UN workers that have been killed. I don't know what the number is now, but when I reported at the time, the number was like 48. I remember when I reported this, there was like 48 UN workers that was killed by Israel. And then the UN, they were such fucking cowards. They couldn't even call out Israel for killing their own people. So after being accused of killing people in the UN, instead of Israel saying, oh, we didn't do that, CJ, you want to know what they said? Not only did they double down on that, they said, not only did we kill your people is Hamas. That's why we killed them. I played it. It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe
such
it.
as Dr. Tedros, such as Mr. Lazzarini of UNRWA, such as Mr. Griffith of OCHA, from all the other libelous UN organizations, committees, and also, sadly, from the Secretary General himself. They do not reflect the situation on the ground. Yes, diplomatic niceties require us to thank them for their work, but sadly, they are relaying falsehoods that are completely detached from reality. For years, the UN has refused to establish verification mechanisms that can provide us a truthful picture of reality.
They're like, so the UN is not helping us do propaganda and labeling hospitals as Hamas. Why aren't you doing the quote-unquote verification systems? And the UN workers are like, nigga, we are. We verified there's no fucking Hamas here. Man, let me continue. This is crazy.
These people.
Is it that supplies the UN with these so-called facts? Sorry. Who is it that supplies the UN with these so-called facts?
So-called.
Is this information coming from unbiased and impartial third parties? The answer is no. Every piece of information regarding the situation on the ground that this council receives comes from Hamas, not international UN employees in Gaza.
So all the information you're getting, don't believe your eyes and ears. Everything that makes it look bad is coming from Hamas. The UN, they getting their information. It's Hamas. We're Hamas because we're showing you this. You're Hamas if you share this. That's what he's saying, fam. And you look at the face of this guy. Everyone around the world that watching this speech is like, nigga, are you fucking serious, bro? Nigga, fucking get a resolution. United States blocked it again. God damn it. Nigga, we get another resolution. Bro, this is crazy cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, clown shit propaganda. And that's the only relief I get out of this, is that how bad they are at this, CJ. They are so used to the United States just shielding them. They are not actually used to convincing people, and they are losing everyone. And I'm almost done, CJ, almost done. But the last time I'm going to show you guys how Israel is losing support.
I will remind the council that Hamas, a genocidal terror organization, controls every facet of Gaza. Every number from the so-called Ministry of Health is Hamas. Many UNRWA workers in Gaza are themselves members of Hamas.
He just said, me and you been working for Hamas. The hell mention Hamas. You're Hamas. You got to get your message. Everyone's Hamas.
The fetuses, they're Hamas.
The kids, everyone, the Hamas.
Oh,
you cannot make this up, man.
Clowns. These people are clowns.
CJ, they truly make our job too easy, man. I said that. I already showed the IDF person on Twitter. I literally just said that. I said, dude, you are literally making our job easy. And I got like thousands of likes on that because they truly are. The only good thing out of this is watching how embarrassing Israel is at controlling public opinion, which is why Joe Biden is screwed, which is why the West is screwed, and the entire world is turning against Israel.
Many UNRWA workers in Gaza are themselves members of Hamas. the time has come to bust the myth of UN-supplied facts. This council is being spoon-fed lies
You think he's killing
by
it?
the very same terrorist organization that deliberately murdered and maimed thousands of innocent Israelis just 34 days ago. Hamas has ensured that every square meter of Gaza is under their complete reign of terror. Many
They're all knowing and all powerful, fam. Once again, the testimonies you hear from the doctors is we have no idea what you're talking about. This all knowing, all powerful entities. The doctors like we never seen any check-ins, no officials. It's so desperate. The Israeli Twitter page posted a photo of a security guard. You know, hospitals who have security guards. They're like, hey, look at the security guards Hamas. That security guard's Hamas. They're like, nigga, that's a security guard. Every hospital got security guards.
They're just unbearable.
That's why it's like no respect for Bernie Sanders or anyone who can't see. If you can't see through the dumbest propaganda of our lifetime, which this is, like we say the Ukraine war is the most propagandized. This is up there with that, but it's the dumbest. So I don't count it. Like this is the dumbest propaganda, and shifting public opinion on Israel was extremely easy. Do you remember the original polls we showed you guys? Well, I was like damn near in tears reading. I'm like, dude, I'm like, God, it's horrible. We got a lot of work to do. Nigga, it's horrible. Nigga, we went from that horrible poll where people like, nigga, yeah, kill all of them. Now they like, nigga, even 50% of Republicans are like, we need a ceasefire now, guys. The propaganda is horrible, but let me continue. We almost done.
ambulances drivers are Hamas members.
Ambulance drivers are Hamas now. Is anyone keeping track? Anyone keeping track? Doing workers, health ministry, ambulance workers, reporters.
Local contributors to international media are Hamas members.
So people who contribute to international media in any way, shape, or form is Hamas. Is anyone
Nick, is he gonna turn to the UN people? You are Hamas too.
Dude, you guys thought I was exaggerating. You guys thought I was doing a bit. I was not doing a bit. That's literally what this motherfucker was doing.
That's what he's gonna do.
So yeah, I'll play the last. I'll play it to the end, but I want to show the entire unhinged speech.
Gaza is under their complete reign of terror. Many ambulances drivers are Hamas members. Local contributors to international media are Hamas members. We saw this week that innocent photojournalists for Reuters and the New York Times not only documented Hamas's horrors, but crossed into Israel to film them with the terrorists themselves.
Zionists are the worst liars in the world, and everything they say is projection. Here's another example. Here's my friend Anthony Q. Amene. And George Galloway, I don't got the segment to say, but he did a great segment saying what I said a few months ago. I said, guys, if you don't know that much about the issue and conflict, like a lot of people have been studying this for a while, a simple guide is whatever you hear from Israel and Zionists, assume it not to be true. So this is stuff they're spraying out because they're losing the narrative. The person at Viva is a Zionist. I was just walking on Newberry Street in Boston with my brother and nephew who were keepers. A black man just walked straight up to us and yelled about us fucking Jews and how black people were gonna kill us all. Then a lot of people stood around, watched, and did nothing. Which I'm sure absolutely did not happen. On Q Anthony Minute said, I've never seen a political tendency as deeply and centrally organized around lying as Zionism is, down to public statements, to people who down with the Zionist call who will lie about black people in order to get people to sympathize for the genocide. But who are the true terrorists here? And this is the ending here. Because what they will argue, CJ, is that Hamas is uniquely evil. Remember what they said? Because they gleefully cheer the death of Jewish people. Right? That's what makes them evil. I know we all get to do a little kid killing here. Who haven't killed a little kids every once in a while? The difference between us is that we don't cheer when we kill kids. That's their argument. I'm going to continue to have fun with these Zionists when I'm going to continue to ask these questions. Like, what exactly is the difference between Israel and Hamas? You want me to condemn Hamas? You want me to condemn Israel, who's a much more effective terrorist organization. Hamas, which is not a terrorist organization based on international law. Everything they say is projection. I'm not going to play the videos because it's for a second time. But Zionism is tied to Nazism It's a tool of white supremacy. And as extreme as they told you Hamas is, the people at Hamas who hate Jews, CJ, remember that's the virtue signaling social justice warrior line that right wingers are picked up on. They hate Jews, they anti-Semitic. Meanwhile, this is Zionism here. I guess I had to play the back there. I'll read the quote because just for sake of time. He said, "America is all ours. We will protect America against you animals because we are white." And Fiorello, our friend, explained Zionism is no different than Nazism, except more dangerous because the United States and their allies are backing actual fascists under the cloak of Judaism. You can't coexist with fascism, you fight it. Based that Fiorello. You see the language they're using here? And trust me, there's more. God, this statement will be forever if I show you guys all the examples of this. But this is a Zionist lawyer, a member of the professional managerial class, the member of privileged, polite society, CJ. You want to see the mindset of the Zionists? Remember who they told us Hamas is evil, remember? Hamas is evil, who want the death of people. They cheer the death of their children. This is what they told us about them.
Go to hell. Free Palestine. Yeah. Free Palestine. We'll bomb the hell out of you. Okay. Yeah, we'll kill all of you. Yeah. All of you terrorists. Kill the children. We'll kill all of you terrorists. I'm so happy that you're killing children. All of you. Go to hell. Yeah. Go to Gaza so they can rape you and kill you. Say your name. Say your name. You. That's my name.
Remember how Hamas are an organization obsessed with raping people, CJ? This is a Zionist telling peace activists to go to Gaza so they can be raped by IDF forces. Why are you so confident that she was get raped?
Yeah.
So isn't it interesting? What I am told, what we are all told about Hamas is Israel and Zionists. Do you guys understand? Everything we talk about Nazis is Zionists. You have people in Israel who are disgusted by this, CJ. The only people who got a conscience, they were being arrested because they show sympathy and they want to end the genocide. Here's just one example. This is what I shared earlier. There was a man who posted on Instagram. He said that I weeps for the residents of Gaza. 40 minutes later, 20 police officers came to his house to arrest him for supporting a terrorist organization. This is the country you guys support? First Amendment advocate support? They are arresting anyone who don't support their genocidal regime in Israel. So is there such thing as a law-abiding citizen of Israel? Because if you're a law-abiding citizen of Israel, you gotta be complicit with the genocide. If you show any sympathy, they lock you up. They was beating the shit out of Jews who stood against the genocide. And you had evangelical Christians cheering Jews being beat. You got Jews that lost their freedom of speech, CJ, because of Zionism. You have Jews in America, they can't say anything because they may lose their job. They're being financially punished as Jewish people because of Zionism. Zionism made Jewish people unsafe, and they are a direct threat to their free speech. Now, I'm actually going to cut a little bit of it. This will be the last thing I'm sharing. I'll pass you, CJ, because this is my longest segment in a while. There's a segment I may say for our next live, because I think it may be thumbnail worthy, where and title worthy, where Glenn Greenwald and Tucker Carlson obliterates the right wing. And I was playing many times before. I am deeply unimpressed with Tucker Carlson, but he's the only guy. Like, the right wing is so bad. He's the only guy who passed the test, the free speech test. Him and Candace Owens, the entire right wing free speech warriors exposed themselves. So Tucker Carlson and Glenn Greenwald exposed them. I don't want to shorthand that segment. I don't want to take too much time, so I may put that to. I mean, we may do Nick and CJ on Wednesday. I keep
exactly
because I may say that for next time. I don't want to take too much time. That'll be the last thing I'll read. And as Marxists, we explained this to you guys before. You guys think you live in a liberal democracy with freedoms, but liberal democracy and freedoms only exist as long as you're obedient. You understand? As long as things going well with capital and their empire, if you're making a little bit of money, even if you're not making a little bit of money, as long as you don't speak against our wars, if you're not speaking against our police state, then you got freedom. Then you got the free speech. Then we might even give you the right to carry a gun if you're really nice. Then we give you all the amendments, but that is only under the condition that you're obedient to the empire and the capitalist mode of conduction. So, as Marx predicted, as many revolutionaries predicted, which is why we need to get ready for self-defense, the second that capitalists truly lose public support, and the second that revolutions truly start to churn, that's when you're going to see the true fascist authoritarian tendencies of Western liberal democracy. You already seen it, and things have been going great. Like, we got a police state, and things have been going great. Imagine what happens when shit really gets real, when their power is threatened. We've seen that when people who made their entire career, and I'll cover this more on the Glenn Tucker, so I gotta be careful not to spoil it. People who made their entire careers on free speech understood that shit is real right now. Like, I can't even pretend to juggle this issue around. I know they may make me look bad, but things are so bad for Israel in my masters that I gotta look bad by supporting this because of this headline. Israel loses much of the support it gained after the Hamas attack. Israel is historically bad at managing the narrative. Because CJ, do you know how long anyone live long enough? You guys know how long the American people was entranced by propaganda after 9/11, the war on terrorism? It wasn't until around 2006-7 that you seen comedians start mocking it. It was around 2000, even 2005. Like John Kerry, I still remember as a kid. John Kerry's criticism of the Iraq War wasn't that it was inhumane and horrible. It was that George W. Bush was a horrible manager of it.
Yeah.
That's how public opinion was in favor of the war on terror. That the Democrat candidate said, "Oh, well, I don't want to end the Iraq War. I just want to make sure we bring it to an end." George W. Bush is lying. He's not doing it right. It took years, if you guys remember, for people to finally snap out of it. Nigga, CJ, Israel lasted 1 month. It lasted 1 month of the derangement, the October 7th derangement. Nigga, 9/11 carried the empire for years. So I'll read the headline. I'll pretty much wrap it up. But Israel loses much of the support it gained after the Hamas attack. I'll just read the first paragraph. I didn't actually read it. I'll be honest. I read the headline here. As reported last week, American public support for Israel increased measurably in 2 weeks after the Hamas October 7th attack. And if you guys remember, I reported on that, and I was in shambles. I was like, God damn, bro, this is fucking, bro. We in the most propaganda because it's horrible. I was in shambles. I can acknowledge when we get a bad report card, right? But despite that, and let me continue to read. And I'll pass to you, CJ. Across the partisan divide, compared with June, our latest poll taken 4 weeks after the attack, during a period when national and international attention has shifted to Israel's subsequent attacks in the Gaza Strip, shows how Israel has lost much of that early support, especially among Democrats. So the IPIS poll. I think this is a poll I actually reported on. But yeah, anyway, you guys see the headline. Most of the support lost in Israel. We're gonna do the Tucker Carlson and Glenn story on the next nigga CJ. I'll that my one presentation of the day. I may add there's a John Kirby segment, but I'm saving that for the Netanyahu one. There's a mini propaganda segment with him. We may do
that's what I'm. That's what I'm getting. Good. So I'm gonna warm up right now. I got maybe 2 short videos and then we get to the Netanyahu video. So yeah, actually,
go
ahead. Do it.
Yeah. So actually, let's read super chats and then I'll pass to you, CJ. There's still so much to cover, and the thing is, for one, we can't. I don't want to show any like gore or anything like that because that can risk our channel. But if I was to do a segment on just documenting the war crimes, that would take 30 minutes. If I took for this segment showing all the unhinged lies that take 30 minutes, I've been overwhelmed by the propaganda here. And I wonder how many other commentators feel the same way. I'm like, dude, there are so many aggressive lies by the Israeli regime. There's so many interviews with IDF people going on. I'm like, dude, I can do a segment on that. I can do a segment on that. They lying about everything. I gotta be selective. It's like, bro, there's only so much we can show you in a rational show here. Anyway, let's move on to super chats. I'll pass you, CJ. There's still a lot to cover, so we may do 3 nigga CJs again.
Yeah, we may have to do that this week.
We gotta juggle the schedule. It's just one of them times, man. They're crazy ass shit. I still haven't had time to report what's going on in the Congo, man. There's so much crazy shit. Receipts that I dumped on Friday. Like, bro, I cut so many stories, so we might have to do 3 days a week for a bit. But thank you for the $5, Tony. These Zionists have lost the plot, and the war they are fighting isn't about religion, but about taking the land for oil and genociding the Palestinians. And that's one of the number one things they're doing. You guys see how they're tying anti-Semitism and Jew hatred with the Zionist state in support of Israel. You know, Zionists have nothing, because as I explained to you guys, ever since the beginning of RBN, the only thing they can make it about is a religious war. In my early days of following politics, I was confused about that as well. The second I look into it, I was like, this is bullshit. But I remember when I first got into politics, when I was a young teenage Democrat, I was like, dude, this Israel-Palestine shit is complicated, because I thought it was a religious war. Like, oh, man, there's a war between Jewish people and Muslim people in Israel-Palestine. That's how they present it. I didn't come up with that for no reason. That's how they present it. That's how they continue to present it. It's a war between Jewish people, Muslim people, and nothing we can really do about it except pick the lesser two evils. That is not what it's about at all. At all. They're Palestinian Christians, they're Muslims, Christians, Jewish people all across the region who support Palestine. But let's move on here. Thank you for $20, Kelly. Kel Jones. Yesterday, a Palestinian eyewitness said there are American soldiers on the ground in Gaza. Absolutely. And that's another reason why Biden needed to be in a Nuremberg trial, because not only are there American soldiers in Gaza, they are directly supplying them with intel. So when Israel bombs a hospital, when they bomb a refugee camp, they're targeting information from the United States government in their drones. So Biden's pretending that I'm telling Israel to chill out, but nothing we can do. That's a lie. The United States is on the ground helping them do this. But let me move on. Thank you for the amazing super chat as always. Thank you for the $2. 007 Angelo, powerful name. IDF is sniping through hospital window. Yeah, what's gonna do? It will take an hour for me to read all the receipts of the war crimes they're doing. One of the things they're doing that I saw is that Israel snipers was sniping kids and civilians inside hospitals. And then there are people putting up signs like, we're civilians. Like, they have signs like, we're civilians. Nope, showing you anyway. And you guys think they're going after Hamas? If you think Israel is going after Hamas, you're among the dumbest people in politics, or you're just a straight up a genocide enabler. There's no middle ground between that. Do you guys agree? Either a genocide enabler or you're the dumbest person in politics. Let's move on. I'll read two more and then we move on. I just don't want to get buried. Thank you for the 199, Amanda. Make sure you guys leave super chats. We'll get to the rest of them after the show. If you guys have a comment. Our community is always really based.
Yeah,
you guys are always thought-provoking super chats. I can rant on almost every single one of them. So thank you for the 199. Liberals, I learned, like, I think, and I have a theory. One of the reasons why we don't get as many liberal trolls as I expected we would, because I would expect we get way more, like, we get few, right? But we don't get as many as I thought we would, because they literally can't stomach watching us. Like, bro, we make them physically ill. Like, we make them so uncomfortable. They can't even take time to watch our shit to troll us. But anyway, thank you for the 199, Amanda. Another theory I have, I'll be quick on this one. I don't know how true this is, but you guys know how the media say, well, you have leftists that are arguing that Hamas has the right to slaughter Israelis. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. This may be my ego here, but I swear to God, they're strongmanning me directly. You guys know how Mediaite ranked us? Mediaite ranked us as the most far-left publication in the world. And not in the world, but in the United States. I explained to you guys how I went to the Palestinian protest, and I met the guy from NPR. He was actually a great guy. And he was like, oh, dude, you're that socialist MA guy. This dude from NPR recognized me. I'm like, whoa, what? So they know who we are, bro. I swear to God. So I think that's them strawmanning our argument. But I don't know. That may be me being too self-involved. This will be my last one I'll read. Thank you for the 199, Amanda. Why are U.S. leaders failing to call for a ceasefire? Because they're complicit with genocide. They are owned by the Israeli lobby. Everything they told you about Russiagate was actually a projection on Israel. Remember they told you how Russia bought politicians? It's actually Israel that bought our politicians. Hopefully that answered the question. CJ, appreciate your patience.
Yes, sir.
And we can.
No worries. All right. We're at 354 likes. Everybody hit that like button. Get us to 500. Get us to 500. All right. Let's get into it. This is another one where we're just kind of going back over receipts here, because it's like you've been saying, there's so much stuff. We have to do streams like this where literally Here, 45 minutes, Nick. You go through your receipts. 25 minutes, I go through my receipts, because it is literally that much stuff. And hopefully some stuff we do overlap, so we are able to cut that out. But what I want to talk about now is this segment here, which is Zionism has already lost the narrative. It's not like they're losing the narrative. I feel like, Nick, they lost the narrative and they're not going to get that narrative back. But that doesn't stop them from trying. And I want to start this out with this interview and then a couple of other videos leading up to the Netanyahu interview, basically building the reason why Netanyahu has to go on these interviews. So walk with me through this presentation right here. So this first video, if you haven't seen it, is a great video. Let's watch. This is how media should address any Israeli official pushing their propaganda. Listen to this.
Because it's a convenient response, isn't it? That every time there is an Israeli strike on some sort of facility inside Gaza, you just tell us that Hamas is operating there, and that's why you're fighting back. We understand that.
I'm sorry.
The UN here, though, is saying that its facility, the UN, internationally recognized body, the UN says that its facility in Gaza was attacked by your forces overnight, and this morning reporting a significant number of deaths. The point is that is in contravention of international humanitarian law, and people need somewhere that is safe to go if you are telling them to evacuate from the north of Gaza.
I have to push back because the insinuation in your question is that Israel takes pleasure at taking pot shots at civilian facilities.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
I would say it. I would say, I'm saying exactly that, sir. Yes, I am.
That's what I'll say too, but I see the strategy he using. But I never like, that's exactly what the fuck I'm doing. Anyway, let's continue.
So let's
because that actually is beside the point. Because if you think about it, that actually is beside the point. Like whether you take pleasure in there or not doesn't change the fact that you're committing a goddamn crime.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that actually is beside the point. So I understand why he kind of trying to sweep it to the side. Like that doesn't fucking matter. Bro, you're killing UN people, bro. Doesn't matter if you're actually happy about it. Or, it doesn't matter if you make a sad emoji afterwards. After you do it, that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Like this doesn't matter from a humanity standpoint.
Yeah, for sure.
To make this point, the reason to them this matters is all about what gives. Because if he says this doesn't matter, I'm sorry, but if he says, like, if he leaves that narrative about the UN, it leaves them open, at least Palestinians open to say, yeah, we do have a legal right to fight back. You get what I'm saying? So let's listen a little more.
I have to push back because the insinuation in your question is that Israel takes pleasure at taking pot shots at civilian facilities.
So let me say that clearer because it felt like it wasn't clear. If he admits they take pleasure in taking pot shots, you know how many things would fall under war crimes? So they have to always be saying, no, that's not our intent, when everybody can see that's their intent. And when I'm saying the reason they're taking that position, Nick, is because of some of the things that you say, so that a Palestinian can't say that they have the right of self-defense.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that every response you make to my suggestion that you are targeting people when they are trying to find somewhere safe to go is that you tell me Hamas is operating there. This is a UN facility.
Because, Ben, Hamas has spent the last 16 years embedding itself underneath civilian areas in Gaza, building its headquarters under the hospital, exploiting ambulances, putting its own, our troops have just discovered rocket launchers and weapon silos inside schools, inside classrooms, next to children's bedrooms.
So that justifies attacking those targets, even though there are, as we've seen this morning, babies in the hospital. We've seen that innocent civilians are in the UN facilities.
Now, the video is to display how, and I'll just read the caption. It says, BBC reporter bodies Israeli government spokesman on calling everything that's bomb Hamas. This is the basic line of questioning you expect, but rarely see.
And the thing is, in order to dismantle that argument, and that's the same Lamont Hill, Mark Lamont Hill. He used literally the same path to destroy the argument as that reporter did. They don't even, because it's so absurd. They can't even take time to dispute their claim that Hamas is having tunnels on the city. Like, bro, if I take time on that, it will take too much time. And that's why it's frustrating to debate Zionists. Because, like, bro, you almost got to set one lie just to debunk the other. And that's what they do. They're like, your claim aside, even if Hamas wasn't banned in the hospital, you saying it's okay for you to kill children? And they keep getting stuck at that point. So you see the best among the genocide neighbors, the best and the smartest among the establishment who don't want to be forever tied with the genocide. They're following that same path. I noticed because that's the second time I know Mark Lamar Hill from one of you that same path to trap Zionists. Okay, even if you're a fucking unhinged, unproven claim is true, you just admitting that you're okay with committing genocide and punishing the civilian population, which is a war crime. But let's continue.
Yeah, and Lamont Hill, he did a great job doing that.
And
Now,
I'll add to that, based on their argument, Hamas was justified on October 7th. That's what's so crazy about it. Now I'm thinking about it, because if you was making a extremely pro-Hamas position, you can say everything they did October 7th was justified because the festival was near military facilities. I heard what the Hamas statement is. That's what the Hamas leader said. They said there was no civilian targeted. Any civilians that was killed was civilians that was armed who was going after our soldiers. But they went after people in the IDF, the youth that have to serve in the IDF, in military facilities. So based on this argument, Hamas was justified because the festival was new military equipment. Isn't that the argument he just made? But let's continue.
Yeah, so you see in that interview, Nick, where he's having a hard time with the narrative going on this show, and he's basically having a meltdown because of the phrasing. Right back to now, what Israel have decided to do when they see worldwide protests, they see all of these videos of people being pro-Palestinian. This is their response to that. This is their video combating what they call pro-Palestinian propaganda.
Hi everyone, we are live on YouTube with Colombia Anti-Semitic News, where everyone is welcome. LGBTQH Hamas.
Yeah, I totally sim Hamas.
Yeah.
It's so trending right now.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Do you
Clown shit. So if you didn't get what they're trying to do, is that they're trying to make fun of pro-Palestinian protesters. That's what this is. This is Israeli friendly, pro-Israeli people, backers, making content which they deem as a parody of these free Palestinian protesters. So let me get back to the video.
Do you know why it's true? Because it rhymes. Just look at all this toxic Zionist propaganda. Kid lived in Gaza. Does this look like Gaza to you?
Yeah, bro, I have no idea what Gaza looks like.
And they're smiling. Do hostages smile? Zionist liars.
Totally sus.
Do they think we're stupid?
Stupid? I major in queer post-colonial astrology. Yeah.
My question would be, who is this marketed to? Who watches this and says that's some funny shit, or you make some good points? Who is this marketed to? Because the only people who could be watching this, maybe like a Morning Joe is watching this, and this is what people who are 60 plus, neocons that are 60 plus think. Young people think about the situation to make them feel better. It's such an absurd parody to make fun of peace protesters. But
to market audience, like you said, I was listening. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know who the audience is, but let's listen to a little more of this.
Ew. Jews make the world dirty.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm racist fluid.
Exactly. And now for a little break from all this activism,
the
we want to
craziest
say
person
hello
alive.
to our BFF,
Bestie freedom fighter.
Abu Fatwa in Gaza. Salam alaikum.
Alaikum as-salam, and inshallah, Allah will kill you all.
Oh, they're so bad. They're so bad. Oh my god,
is terrible.
oh my god,
I
bro.
saw
I
this and I
wish our propaganda was this bad, bro. People would see.
I'm
shit is way
trying to
more
figure out
sophisticated.
who is the audience for this, though. That's what I like. Who is the audience? And the only person I can envision, Nick, is a Morning Joe watcher. Is a Morning Joe's or Morning Joe himself.
Yeah,
might be
for
watching
sure.
this and busting
Dude,
up.
Donnie Deutsch
That's the only
was
person
dying watching this, boy.
Yes.
Donnie Deutsch probably
Yes.
favorited and bookmarked this video, bro. This is peak comedy to him.
Yeah. All right. I'll play 30 more seconds and then I'll get to the interview. I'm building up to the interviews that I want to show you. So let's play 30 more seconds and I'll get to the interview.
All infidels.
Thank you so much for joining us. Love the headpiece, the all oppression chic. Very drip.
Mr. Fatwa, how are you? Are you safe?
Oh, yes, I'm safe. I'm in a tunnel under the Gaza hospital. Above me, I have Allah and 2 million civilians protecting me.
Community is so important.
They're doing pro-genocide comedy. Like that whole bit is designed to justify why Israel bombing hospitals. Comedy on behalf of genocide. Unbelievable. Like, how are people not embarrassed supporting
I'm
this?
protected by Allah and 2 million civilians. I'm under a hospital. And this is what's so weird, Nick. They're doing this thinking, you see, this is why we have to do it. Not understanding, we're looking at this going, yeah, that Hamas person is not worth the 200 people that's in the hospital you got to bomb.
Yeah.
Doesn't like if I went off your own narrative, Nick, if I just go off their narrative, I'm still not for this. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm still calling for a ceasefire. Oh, they're gonna build up their stockpile. Okay, it's gonna save people's lives. So when people like, and I'm bringing this down and get to the actual interview. So when people like Hillary Clinton says a ceasefire only, the pivotal word, Nick, in there is only. A ceasefire only benefits Hamas as if it doesn't benefit the babies in the incubators, as if it doesn't benefit the people at the hospital, as if it doesn't benefit the kids, the 3,000 plus kids that was murdered. Like, it is such a bizarre way of looking at things. Go ahead.
Yeah, and CJ, what does that say about the West? I made this point before, but what does it say about the West and their goals and their ambitions? That peace is always good for their enemy. You can't have peace in Ukraine because that will get Putin a victory. You can't have peace in Taiwan, that will get China a victory. You can't like, you guys see how peace is always a bad thing. Ceasefire benefits Hamas. Ceasefire benefits Putin. Like, that's if we lift the sanction in Venezuela, that would benefit Nicolas Maduro. If we give Afghanistan the $1 billion that we stole from them back, that would benefit the Taliban. You gotta know, it's like at a certain point, if you doing bad shit, continue to hurt other people, we need to question who's the bad guy in this scenario. But let's continue.
Yeah, so now we move to so this segment is like about narrative building. I showed you the first video where the anchor did a great job. Then I showed you the other side, the Israeli narrative building. Now I go back to the other side, the pro-Palestinian sort of narrative building. Now, he's sort of milquetoast pro-Palestinian, this guy you see on the screen. That's Fareed Shakari. I think that's how you say his name. Yeah. But he has on the show Anthony, I think it's Guterres, the UN secretary. Now, if remember, he took heat and they was asking for his resignation because he said this October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum. And he took a whole bunch of heat where they say he needs to be resigned. All the Republicans were saying that.
I would say Fareed Zakaria is one of the most trusted war propagandists that work for CNN. I don't know the position on Israel Palestine. Maybe he pretended for Israel, but I've been following his takes on Ukraine, the war on terror. This dude has consistently been hinged. And then with those segments, every once in a while together, like, man, isn't it kind of bad that we kill civilians? But then people are like, man, Fareed Zakaria telling the truth.
Great.
But I am not impressed by that. I'm not impressed by that. Because you know what these people do, like Fareed do? They will say stuff like, isn't it crazy that we kill so many civilians and we cause so many wars in this country? Huh. Then they just live the life the same. Those people are the least impressive. Anyway, I like continue, but I hate people that do that. You want me to give you congratulations? You see the evil, but you continue to live your life the same way. You continue to be a mouthpiece for these criminals. But let's continue.
That's so PMC. But let's listen. Here is now we're not watching the whole interview. I queued it up to the spot I want to where he makes a point because we're building up to the final interview. So one of the last clips I'm going to play, which is with Netanyahu. So let's listen.
Hamas uses human shields, but international humanitarian law also gives a primacy to the protection of civilians, and this is what is not happening.
Let me just rewind it 30 seconds, just because it was kind of buffering. So let's rewind it so we can get the full understanding here.
In Gaza, and relented bombardments, and we are seeing a dramatic.
Give it a second. I don't know why it's doing this.
Number of civilian casualties, and the international humanitarian law is clear. International humanitarian law forbids to take hostages, and I strongly appeal for the immediate and unconditional release of hostages by Hamas, and I've always been very clear on that. International humanitarian law says that human shields should not be used by parties, and I strongly condemn the fact that Hamas uses human shields.
So understand, this is what I said. They want his resignation, but he absolutely is not the advocate I would select. And you hear in what he's saying here, and this he's sort of like a sock dim. You know what I mean? He's gonna say all the things that the establishment wants you to hear about Hamas, like they're using human shields, but then he's gonna say all the stuff that all the progressive Democrats are gonna say. He's sort of the same way. Let's listen.
But international humanitarian law also gives a primacy to the protection of civilians, and this is what is not happening. You mentioned the graveyard of children, that expression that I used. Now, as you probably know, every year I publish a report about children killed and maimed and victims of conflict, and the countries that do it are listed. And this usually generates a polemic. Remember the past situations of Saudi Arabia, of Israel, of Russia, etc. Now, in the 7 years I've been Secretary General, in the reports that have been presented, the maximum number of children killed during 1 year by any party to the conflict was about 600. 600 by the Taliban in one of the years, 600 by the Syrian government and their allies in another of the years. If you remember the polemics about the uproar about the Saudi bombardments in Yemen, 300 people in 1 year. Now, I'm not going to enter into discussions about the accuracy of the numbers provided by the de facto authorities that exist in Gaza, but it is clear that the number of children killed in a few weeks in Gaza is in the thousands. Now
again, I must say, this is what SOC Dems believe is good advocacy. But this is what radicals like us don't believe is good advocacy. Because what he's saying here, now listen closely to this last part, what he says here.
I'm not going to enter into discussions about the accuracy of the numbers provided.
I'm not going to enter into the discussion about the accuracy of the numbers. You mean the oppressor said don't go off the numbers of the oppressed? So he is deciding to go with the line that we can't trust the numbers from Hamas. That's not a good position if you're an advocate. And this is the thing that the social Dems always do. They got to play both sides. They got to say something on one side and say something on the other side. I'm not giving no caveats. I'm coming to the interview. No, I don't need to condemn Hamas. I'm just condemning Israel. But this is what they feel the need to do. Let them finish out here, and then I'll bring up
those people get blacklisted like I do. Those people get blacklisted like I did.
Facts.
Provided by the de facto authorities that exist in Gaza, but it is clear that the number of children killed in a few weeks in Gaza is in the thousands. Now, it is clear that the protection of civilians that is paramount in international humanitarian law is not paramount in the strategy that is being applied by the military operations in Gaza.
Why do you think the Israelis are not making that a primacy objective?
I mean, because the logic has been in many situations to raise neighborhoods, and I presume this is to facilitate the movement of troops or for any other reason. But the question is the protection of civilians that is required is not there. And then the second aspect in international humanitarian law is that you must guarantee unrestricted access to humanitarian aid to all areas where the conflict is taking place. And what we have seen until now is a
unlimited access, Nick, and I'm going to get to the next interview. I wanted to get, that was the last part of that interview.
Yeah.
Unlimited access, but then we have our media, Nick, who is acting like Joe Biden is some great humanitarian for negotiating 500 trucks, when before all this happening, they were already getting 200 trucks. I think it was 200 trucks a day, or was it 2,000 trucks a day? No, great. But it was a vast number of trucks. They're getting a fraction of that.
Yeah. So
and he's saying international law, though, and then I'll pass it to you for your comment. Nick, he's saying international law, the guy from the UN, he said it's supposed to be unlimited humanitarian access. But go ahead, Nick. You wanted to chime in. I'll bring up.
Like we said earlier, we all know how much you guys have been paying attention to the media right after October 7th, but it was unbearable. This guy is far from a revolutionary, far from it. But based on what I've seen right after October 7th, when essentially everyone was telling Israel to finish the job and saying that Israel had the right to do whatever, the fact that CNN is even airing this tepid criticism, that they even tell you the truth, shows how much Democrat and liberal viewers flipped on this issue.
Yeah.
Now the 50% Republican number is still very significant. That's just the one poll I saw. I need to find another poll. I don't know that poll's outlier or whatever, but the one poll I saw showed 50% Republicans before a ceasefire, like 56% independents, 80% Democrats. So CNN and MSNBC, even though they behold Israel, they still do plenty of. They have like IDF people on, and they do all pro-Israel propaganda. They have to do a little bit of this to maintain their aura of credibility. That's how bad Israel lost the narrative. And you can tell there's almost like an aura from the Western media where they look at Israel as amateur propaganda. They're like, you guys are so amateur that we can't even cover for you motherfuckers cover for doing the genocide. Like we cover for Biden when he bombed Yemen to death. We cover for our bombing in Syria. We cover Israel in the past, but you guys in the Lucky Party, it's so amateur, nigga. We ain't going down with you motherfuckers. We're going to do our bare minimum, but we can still talk about the people that you guys killed. And that's why we were able to do this segment. And I'm just shocked. And I want to make sure you guys understand, I'm not like necessarily praising CNN here. It is compared to October 8th, October 9th, and October 10th. It's a completely changed narrative. It is not organic. I want to emphasize that. It's not organic
at all.
They got direction that, okay, you guys got to show some humanity here, or we gonna lose people. But go ahead, CJ. I think I'm in a point.
So I'm gonna play a little bit of this Netanyahu interview, and then I think that might be all of the Israel. I do want to get to at least one more story, and I'll let you pick. We have the Eric Adams story. It might be that's a short story, and then we have the Vivek Ramaswamy on Ukraine. His comments on Ukraine.
Let's do Eric because it's in the title, and we can cover Vivek. Maybe.
We can do that tomorrow.
I can probably bring some receipts on that one too, so we can probably cover that next time. So I think I'll vote for Eric Adams, but go ahead, CJ.
All right, so let's listen. We're not gonna watch the whole interview again because you know what I mean, like. We just want to get the gist of the propaganda, and then he just starts to just trying to repeat the same thing. So let's listen to the setup, and then they get to the interview. But it's important to include the setup of the interview. Here we go.
Evacuation corridor from the medical center for people to move south.
The civilian crisis has prompted a shift in approach by the Biden administration, which says too many Palestinians have died in the conflict. While Israel yesterday, what we saw there were families of hostages taken by Hamas, demanding that they be more prioritized. The rescue comes soon. Joining me now is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Sir, thank you so much for joining me. Let's start with what's happening at that hospital. Israeli forces have said that they are engaged in intense fighting around Al-Shifa Hospital, the largest medical facility in Gaza. I know that you say that the hospital sits on top of a Hamas command and control center, but of course there are also patients.
Let me rewind it because it's important. This first question is doing a little tick. Let me just rewind it and see if that'll fix that little tick that it has there.
Israeli forces have said that they are engaged in intense fighting around Al-Shifa Hospital, the largest medical facility in Gaza. I know that you say that the hospital sits on top of a Hamas command and control center, but of course there are also patients, civilians sheltering in that complex getting treatment. So how do you intend to go after Hamas without putting sick and injured civilians in that hospital at more risk than they already are?
Well, we've called to evacuate all the patients from that hospital. And in fact, 100 or so have already been evacuated. I've called for field hospitals. The French president has sent a floating hospital ship. I've asked the Emirates to send a field hospital. They have, and other countries have done the same.
I'm gonna get another version. I'm gonna let this play, but I'm gonna get another version in the background just so I can clean this up. But we can still understand what he's saying, but I'm gonna get another version set.
I expect the UN to build this, so there's no reason why we just can't take the patients out of there instead of letting Hamas use it as a command center for terrorism, for the rockets that they fire against Israel, for the terror tunnels that they use to kill Israeli civilians. Remember, Donna, let's keep this in focus. Just imagine what would happen if the United States were attacked viciously by 29 11s. 20. That's the proportionate number. 50,000 Americans.
Pause on that point real quick. That's unbelievable.
10,000 Americans.
That Israeli propaganda,
including babies.
It's unbelievable that Israeli propaganda.
10,000 rockets falling.
Hold on. What? I thought I clicked the.
Yeah,
my bad. I thought I clicked it. There we go.
Yeah, their website trash. So I've seen quite a few Israeli officials go with this line. It's crazy they do. They said, do you guys remember when America was attacked after 9/11? You guys committed all those war crimes? Yeah, most people actually look at America's response after 9/11 with disdain. Netanyahu, thank you for making our point. There's actually lessons to be learned on irrationally committing war crimes and using your pain as justification for committing atrocities. So what Benjamin Netanyahu and the dumb Zionists, they don't realize is that they admit to many people that they're about to make the same goddamn mistake that many Americans acknowledge was committed by Americans in the war on terror. Even people who are neocons realize that the war on terror was such a disaster that they will criticize that. They may support the other wars, you know what I mean, like Trump, but people like Trump will criticize the war on terror because most people know it was inherently bad. But Israel is using that as an example of why they are justified. Imagine how far gone you have to be to use the war on terror in the completely destabilizing foreign policy that the United States engaged in as justification for your genocide. But I'll let it continue. I still got the video back up, but that's just a crazy point they continue to make that they think is a good one.
Yes. So it looks like the video is now working. So let's play.
Reason why we just can't take the patients out of there instead of letting Hamas use it as a command center for terrorism.
And the reason I wanted to refresh it, because this, to me, they start out with a great question and a terrible answer.
In that hospital at more risk than they already are.
Well, we've called to evacuate all the patients from that hospital. And in fact, 100 or so have already been evacuated. I've called for field hospitals.
Nick, if you call to evacuate a hospital in an hour. Then you go back to your machine. I'm about to take this shit out. Don't you got to look through your scope? And won't you look through your scope and be like, hey, there's still people in there. I'm not about to shoot this. Go ahead.
Not only that, we just reported on it was the exact opposite, where Israeli snipers saw people, kids, and people that couldn't possibly be, like, not even military-aged men, you know what I mean? Pulling the trigger on children and elders and people who are visibly sick. So this fantasy that they're describing, that they allow people to leave, is just based on reports not true. And that explains why Israel is going after a journalist and their entire family.
Yes.
They are targeting people documenting their horror so they can go on TV and lie about it. But let's continue.
Hospitals. The French president has sent a floating hospital ship. I've asked the Emirates to send a field hospital. They have, and other countries have done the same. I expect the UN to build this. So there's no reason why we just can't take the patients out of there instead of letting Hamas use it as a command center for terrorism, for the rockets that they fire against Israel, for the terror tunnels that they use to kill.
Terrorism is bombing hospitals.
Remember, let's keep.
Like, they be like, oh my God, Hamas terrorism. Who's the one bombing hospitals? Like, the audacity of Israel supporter to call anyone else a terrorist in this time. Who's killing incubator babies right now? Bombing hospitals. And you guys calling other people terrorists? They try to completely remove what the word means. Like they do with everything, right? But let's continue.
Keep this in focus. Just imagine what would happen if the United States were attacked viciously by 29 11s. 20, that's the proportionate number. 50,000 Americans killed. 10,000 Americans held hostage, including babies, elderly, women, children. 10,000 rockets falling on your cities. That's the number of rockets that are falling all the time on our cities. May fall during this interview, in fact, and we'll have to go to a shelter. That's what's happening. So what would America do? It would take all its force and go after these killers. And what if these killers embed themselves in hospitals, in schools, in UN facilities? You do everything in your power to get the civilians out, which is what we're doing. We call them to leave, but you certainly wouldn't give immunity to the terrorists. So we're obviously treading carefully when it comes to hospitals, but we're also not going to give immunity to the terrorists. And so far, even though Hamas has tried to prevent,
you know what Netanyahu just said there?
Hundreds of thousands.
We know he's a lying picture, but you know what he said there? He like, y'all war criminals too. What y'all talking about? Come on, man. Come on. Why y'all got? We supposed to be running buddies. We supposed to be running mates. You guys see what you did on the war on terror? Barack Obama bombed hospitals and shit too. So, in that angle, I guess he has a point, but that shows how in the United States and our ruling class had the more high ground over nobody. Not only are we complicit, if Joe Biden and them turn against Israel, they can even say, man, you see what you did in the Middle East? See what we did to Somalia and them? That's the tactic he's using. It's obviously wrong because he's trying to use it as a way to deflect criticism, but it says everything about how bad the position is that he got point at U.S. war criminals as a justification for their war crimes. But let's continue.
Thousands have left, sometimes having to go through Hamas gunpoints and gunfire
just to be clear,
sir, keep them in harm's way.
Just to be clear, sir, Israel will help these civilians who are quite sick and inside these hospitals come out, not just in Al-Shifa, but there are other hospitals where this is happening.
Yes, we're telling them to leave. And
telling them or helping them?
Helping them by creating safe corridors. So we have designated routes to a safe zone south of Gaza.
Designated routes directly to the bombs that we're going to
Yeah, they bombed those people. They bombed those people, so that's a lie. But let's continue. She she has that Dana Bash. I always get them confused. Who's that again? That's Dana.
Yeah, that's Dana Bash. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I always get them confused. But Dana, you guys see how Dana has to go out? Like we never see them question politicians like this, but she has to because that's how bad Israel lost public support. You think that she's doing this out of the kindness of her heart because she really cares about the Palestinians? She's doing a role, and the fact that this is her assigned role says everything about the project of Zionism. But let's continue. It's actually pretty. I didn't see this. It's actually pretty crazy.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to say is that this could also be coordinated. Netanyahu could know. Hey, I'm going on these shows because in the American media, I'm looked at as a villain, so I have to come on here and play my role. Yeah, you guys got my 14 billion, right? As long as you got my 14 billion, I'll come on here and do these little shows. Let you guys pretend like you're pressuring me with these, questioning me with these questions. But to your point, both of these things can be true, where he's doing that, and the anchor, like in this case, Dana Bash, is also feeling the pressure that, hey, we're seeing these genocide, you need to start doing your job. And they're also going, you know what? I don't want my legacy tied to this shit, so I'm gonna at least do this. Both of them can be true. Both of them can be true. Go ahead.
To your point, which is why your point is good, because Netanyahu knows he's gonna be grilled by anyone. So he's like, all right, Dana Bash. Like, if you guys gonna do this to anyone, I don't pick someone I trust. So that's a good way of looking at it as well. But so let's continue.
Yeah, and he goes on Meet the Press. And he goes on some other show he went on too, because they know that this is the thing. This is the thing. Dana Bash represents the United States, who's an ally, who have to pretend to your own people set up this theater. Think of how disgusting. The people who is watching your theater are the people who's funding this whole apparatus that y'all gotta fucking scam us on and bring this guy on when you know he's committing. You think Dana Bash doesn't know he's committing genocide? You think Dana Bash doesn't know he's targeting? All these reporters have brains. They know what the fuck's going on. But she's, even in her world, she's pushing back like damn Malcolm X. That's in her world. That's what she thinks.
Yeah.
That's what she thinks. But let's get back into it.
As a city where there's no fighting, and we're telling them, go ahead, move. And by the way, 70,000 have moved 3 days ago. I think 50,000 moved yesterday. More will move today. We want all the civilians to be removed out of harm's way. And Hamas is doing everything in their power to keep them in harm's way.
They
put missiles below. Yes, go ahead.
Do you believe that there are hostages?
You see how she's cutting him off? It's a tell that she's not buying none of the shit that he's saying at all. She's like, yeah, I know this is a theater, and I know you have lines to run, but I'm getting anxious. Like, yeah. Get through your bullshit so I can get to this next shit. Yeah, get through it.
Remember my point?
She keeps cutting them off. Go ahead.
Remember my point about the true propagandists being deeply unimpressed with Israel? Like, this is almost like them showing how unimpressed they are with the propaganda, because they're like, all right, if we can prove you wrong, think how bad you're doing compared to the RBN mother. If we can do this, like, it's almost like a wake-up call to your point, right? Like, they're like, get your shit together. Like, if I can do this to you, you know you're weak. So anyway, let's continue.
Yeah, it's just a little bit more. He just goes on with just this nonsense rambling more and more.
Israeli or American hostages?
Oh, let me. This is an important follow-up she has.
Hamas
here.
is doing everything in their power to keep them in harm's way. They put missiles below. Yes, go ahead.
Do you believe that there are hostages below that hospital? Israeli or American hostages?
Well, I'm not going to go into the intelligence picture we have, but this.
Well, let's answer the question. Let's answer if it's yes, and let's answer if it's no. So if it's yes, you know how problematic that is? Yeah. There's hostages in the tunnel that you're bombing. The ones that we're telling people we're having these humanitarian pauses for. These 4 hours show theater pauses that we're doing. Like, this is what I'm saying, Nick. Like, it's almost like, I don't understand. For what you want to do as a colonial settler project, this is not the strategy to do what you want to do, Netanyahu.
Yeah, we all know.
Which is so bizarre to me.
And we all know that Israel already declined a hostage exchange deal, a ceasefire exchange deal. So Israel has no. When you hear American propagandists talk about hostages, you know them people putting hostages photos up. Like, rip those motherfuckers down, guys. Like, rip them. They don't care about hostages. They rejected deals for them, and they are trying to bomb them. But let's continue.
there's been this vicious thing. They take hostages. Imagine a baby is held hostage. Who takes a baby hostage? Yeah, I don't know if you have children, Donna. I'm sure your camera.
Who kills a baby that's taken hostage is the better question. That's the better question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because this is the jump that is not being analyzed in corporate media. Although they've done a lot more, they're talking about Israel is out doing their military offensive in Gaza. And then they talk separately as if they're separate, Nick. There's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. What, nigga? Tell Israel to stop then. Then it fixes both problems. It's such a bizarre thing that the media does. But let's listen a little more.
Crew has, and we all have children. What is this taking children hostages, threatening to kill them? I mean, this is savagery of the highest order. So obviously, we're doing everything in our power to achieve two things. One, destroy Hamas, because without it, none of us have a future. And it's not only our war, it's your war too. It's the battle of civilization against barbarism. And if we don't win here, this scourge will pass. The Middle East will pass to other places.
Yeah.
Middle East will fall. Europe is next. You'll be next. But it's the first goal is to destroy Hamas, and the second goal is to bring back our hostages. We're trying to do both.
Yeah, so those are completely understandable goals that the United States very much supports, understanding that Hamas is a barbaric terrorist organization. But Israel
you're
is not
talking to
Hamas,
a person who
and
bombed
the United
kids.
States also makes very clear that democracy.
I want to let you guys know that Hamas is a terrorist organization, said the person interviewing the guy bombing kids. What does terrorism mean to you, Dana? But let's continue. Jesus Christ. Like, how do people not catch this?
The United States.
Bombing doctors and hospitals, but Hamas are terrorists. Absurd. Let's continue.
Very much supports, understanding that Hamas is a barbaric terrorist organization. But Israel is not Hamas, and the United States also makes very clear that democracies have to do better. The Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, said that far too many Palestinian civilians have been killed. What is your response to that?
I think any civilian loss is a tragedy, and the blame should be placed squarely on Hamas because it prevents them from leaving the war zone, sometimes at gunpoint. It fired on the safe zone and the safe corridor that we enacted the other day to prevent Palestinians from leaving harm's way. It puts rockets inside the schools, hospitals. It has tunnels below children's beds.
Right, but you see how the analysis or discussion it's always missing the bridge. Yeah, let's say they do all of that, Nick. None of that kills people. Them putting tunnels underneath hospitals doesn't kill people. Them using human shield doesn't kill people. You are the ones that are killing people. That's the thing they're never discussing. It's like, so then basically Netanyahu is saying, because they do all those things, that gives us right to go in after them regardless of civilian casualties. And let's see if she pushes back. You'd be surprised to hear what she says here.
Absolutely,
so obviously we can't give them immunity.
But because Israel isn't Hamas, is Israel doing everything possible to take that into consideration?
Yes, Dan, and more than that. We're trying to minimize civilian casualties. As a result of our ground action, I think the number of civilian casualties
How is
actually
bombing a
being
refugee
reduced because
camp doing
people
that?
are heeding our calls to leave the area.
So once again, just because Israel makes a claim, United States, doesn't make it true. The same thing the Biden administration does. I don't know how she responds to this, 'cause I haven't seen this. But just because Israel said they're looking after civilians, you can look at objective evidence and find that it's not true. If you care about civilians, you wouldn't bomb a refugee camp and kill over 50 people just to get one Hamas commander that you guys didn't even get. And that's just one example out of many. But let's continue.
And defying Hamas's attempt to keep them there. and we'll do everything in our power to do that. But the one example I could give you is this. Look, these savages, they perpetrated the worst horrors on Jews since the Holocaust. The German Chancellor Scholz called them the new Nazis. Well, look at the old Nazis. The Allies were attacked by Hitler, and so they invaded France and then Germany. And when they did that, they went into the cities. They had to fight the German army that was often embedded in civilian in the cities, in civilian neighborhoods, and many civilians were killed. So who was the blame laid on to? Did they say, well, the Nazis are the Allies are wrong, the Allies should stop fighting? Or they said, look, you.
So you guys realize he's arguing against the Geneva Conventions, right? That's what he's doing. He essentially is making the argument that war is so brutal, why give a fuck? The whole point of the Geneva Convention was that World War II was so messy that they decided to put rules on war. So his argument is, nigga, why don't we just do whatever we want in war? What the fuck is up with these rules? Are you guys trying to win or not? He in his society is so crazy. He don't realize how insane his argument looks to everyone else. I don't know what Danny catches that, but to me that's glaringly obvious. But let's continue, CJ.
Yes. And we're almost done here. He makes a couple more points and we'll close. It's a long interview, so we're not going to listen to the whole thing.
Use force as judiciously as you can, but don't give the Nazis any refuge. Defeat the Nazis, which is what we're doing.
Prime Minister,
we're using force in the most judicious way, but we have to defeat these new Nazis, and we will, for our sake, for your sake too.
I want to ask about the hostages. Thousands of Israelis, including families of hostages, rallied this weekend right across the street from where you are right now. They're very frustrated that they're not getting more information from you on where their loved ones are, believe that your government is not doing enough to get them back. What do you say to them?
It's understandable. They're under tremendous distress. They're under just torture. You can imagine that. You have your father, your husband, your son, your daughter taken by these savages.
Are you doing enough?
And held at.
You see how she cuts into him? This is a script, man. This is such a rehearsed script. She's getting impatient with the script. Like she knows he has a bunch of lines. She's getting impatient with the script. Like, come on, man, get to it. Either that or she's not believing at all what he's saying about the situation.
Everything we can around the clock, and I can't, talk about it. I personally met with the hostage families of hostages several times, and it's just tears your heart out. But yes, we're doing everything and many things that I can't say here, obviously.
Of course,
but this is one of our two war goals. I mean, one is to destroy Hamas, and the second is to bring back our hostages, and we'll do everything we can. And we think the entire world should join us. Demand from the Red Cross that it.
Really, Nick? You know what I think? They don't care anything about the hostages. I'm talking about the Israeli ones.
Yeah.
And they don't care if they're killed during their offensive whatsoever. In fact, they may want them to be killed in this offensive. And I'm talking about the Israeli ones. And the reason they're not getting answers, the loved ones, is because Israel don't give a fuck about them. But that's not what Israel is going to say, at least their government. And people here in the West don't understand. Netanyahu is about as popular as Nancy Pelosi, as Mitch McConnell. Yeah. He's not popular at all. They don't like him whatsoever. And just like Joe Biden did with the Ukraine war, because the Ukraine war to us came out of the blue. We were just moving along through Build Back Better. And then all of a sudden, when they saw the poll numbers, then the Ukraine war. I remember vividly when the Ukraine war first started, that's what was the headlines. Joe Biden's poll numbers fall, so now let's go to war. It's the same thing that's happening with Netanyahu. His poll numbers fall, and now all of a sudden there's a mission that needs to be taking place. And like you said earlier, Nick, and we can close the interview and get to the Eric Adams, but like you said, we're going to find out what really happened on October 7th. Yeah, we do not know what really happened on October 7th whatsoever. But go ahead.
It's imperative. It's imperative for the establishment to do everything they can, no matter how authoritarian, to prevent the truth coming out.
Can you imagine the rage that's gonna come out once people realize that Israel killed their own people, that they could have prevented the attack in the first place? CJ, if you don't mind, just because I'll stay a little bit longer. I'm playing. I'm kind of starving here as well. You mind if I'm gonna read a few super chats? You mind if I pass to you for the Eric story to wrap it up?
We can do it tomorrow. I don't care if we do it tomorrow. I'll see. Yeah, I might do it today, but or we could do it tomorrow or whenever we go.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, wherever we go live. Let me just show this. This is not part of the story. Don't forget tomorrow. We got the post-duopoly show is finally back, but we have a new time. That's why I want to promote it now. It's during this time right now. So tomorrow, I think it's 1 or 1:30. It could be 1:30 p.m. Eastern. The post-duopoly show is back. We'll be talking about the third-party era, and I took that from your tweet, Nick, because I really do believe we're moving into a third-party era. So make sure you tune in tomorrow around the same time as this show today for the post-duopoly show, first time in the morning, afternoon. Make sure you check that out. But go ahead, Nick, with super chats, and we can get out of here.
Yeah, I'll just read a few that we left off at. Thank for 499 Bucky fan. Fareed Zakaria supported apartheid in South Africa while he was in college. So did Liz Cheney. For example, look, he's someone that's deeply trusted by the establishment. That's why they would even allow him to do, I'm criticizing the ally segment, because they know he won't go too far. You know what I mean? He's especially during the Ukraine war, he really was elevated. Like, he was their go-to. Like, whenever I saw, like, Ali Veshi was like the MSNBC guy. Obviously, Morning Joe was on top of it. But whenever you see CNN, it was always Rashid Zakaria and a few other people I don't know by name. Like, they give assignments to people they trust on foreign policy. Like, you may be a new up-and-coming anchor, and they trust you to do red blue game, but when it comes to war, these niggas are picky. They're like, not all you motherfuckers. You gotta know that Joanne Reed don't do a lot of foreign policy
at all.
She cover just culture war, red blue. Like, you gotta earn the trust, nigga. Foreign policy, war propaganda is stuff they don't hand to everybody. And Fareed Zakaria is like the lead guy on CNN. I know he probably does other stuff, but that's all I care about. That's what I know him for. Thanks for the $50, Cal. Hope you enjoyed this. I need this laugh. Thank you, guys. That's what I need. I need to have fun with these segments to stop me from going crazy. Point out how absurd inside old maniacs are. Been a tough few weeks, haven't it? This is my homie Dore. Thing for $5. Just got free coffee, paying it forward. Herzog sound like a South Park character. Yeah, that could be a South Park bit. Free Palestine, RBN, best network. Well said. Thank for $2, 007 Angelo. Once again, Nick gives no fucks and pull no punches. Laugh out loud. I love it. I don't know any other way to do this. I don't understand sellouts to my core. I don't get it. Like, just if I wanted to tell you some shit I don't believe to make money, I'll just sell cards. Like, it was better. You know what I mean? That's sales is telling you shit you don't believe so you make money. If I want to do shit on my own, if I'm working on my own, I'm gonna do it my way. Like, what's the point of doing your own shit and you just doing the same thing? Like you want to make your own network, but you MSNBC light. I don't understand that. I don't get it. That's just me personally. Like, this shit would be boring to me. I would hate doing this if I was on YouTube saying shit I didn't really believe in. Like, it'll hurt my soul. But anyway, did I read this one? Thank for 999. All love, comrades. You see that Black Lives Matter leader on Dore? No, I haven't seen it. Acting like Trump is the answer for Biden. Oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, I saw that. It's pretty
I haven't
terrible.
seen it. I've been behind on independent. I've been really behind on independent media recently. I cover whenever CJ and have a segment. That's my dose of independent media. Even the Israel-Palestine conflict is already too much. Like whenever I watch Danny Haifong or anyone else, I get depressed watching that shit. Love to see you both break down that segment.
I saw for this comment, I saw the interview of that BLM Trump supporter is a BLM organizer who is now a Trump supporter. I saw it on Kim Iverson, so I didn't see it on Jimmy.
I would love to see what his argument is.
I saw it on Kim.
I promise you guys that guy wouldn't last 5 minutes in a conversation with me without me pointing out his contradiction. The idea that you're for Trump, that you're for the duopoly, as someone advocating for our community, that's just dumb. Like, that's actually, I'm not gonna use the word. I'm not gonna use the word grifter because grifter is overused. But you just being reactionary and you just saying stuff you know that people want to hear. Like, you guys know how many subscribers we will have at RBN, and we was like, nigga, we all in for Trump. Like, people think we're like, we picked the hardest way. Being black and advocating against the duopoly. If we was either black liberals, black for Biden, black for Trump, nigga, we'd be at 250,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I know, because there's this guy, we talked about it before, he's like maybe 2-3 years old now. There's a guy, a right-wing influencer I saw that started around the same time RBN did. He's a for Trump clown. Like, he's like, all his videos talking about how great Trump is. That motherfucker got 250,000 subscribers in 1 year. Like, one black guy just dwarfs RBN. That's the grifter, fam. Like, not the people that fighting against the duopoly. The money is in the duopoly. If you're, and I'm not, once again, I'm not calling this guy a grifter because I hate that term. It's overused. But there are people that just say shit. They want to go, they take the path of least resistance. It's easy to be a part of the Trump team. Because if you're part of the Trump team, you got a community that always have your back. If you're a Biden, if you're a black Democrat, you got, even though MAGA hates you, even though independents like you, you know you always got the liberal that can fall back on you as an audience. What we're doing the hard thing. We oppose Bernie. We're not trying to cultivate Bernie supporters. We're not trying to cultivate Marianne Williamson supporters. Obviously, as you guys see, we're not trying to cultivate Dr. West supporters. We carving out our own politics, and and if you like it, welcome aboard. If you don't like it, you can leave. That's the exact opposite of what a grifter is. And I see a lot of people in this space that make the calculating decisions. You know what I mean? They benefit greatly from it. You know what I mean? But with that said, I still try to avoid that term because liberals ruined it. They ruined what a grifter actually is. Am I almost done? Yeah, actually, I think I got.
That might have been the last one. Oh.
Yeah, I
thought you were at the last one.
Yeah, almost done. Then for $5, see Middle East Eye. Displaced Palestinian man from Gaza says soldiers shot outside his home. Yeah, dude, guys, there's too much stuff. I see all this stuff on Twitter. Like, there's so much stuff revealing Israeli lies. Like, if you have internet and you still believe what Israel's saying, you are either the dumbest person, as I said, or you are willful idiot for the genocide. You want the genocide to happen, and you are willing to lie and distort facts to make it happen. To me, there's no in between. There's no benefit of the doubt I'm giving people. So I think for Super Chat, they're just playing one of the other crimes of Israel. And I am done. I didn't remember reading this one. So I'll let you know regarding tomorrow. I'm planning the panel we aiming for Wednesday for the Palestinian panel around the afternoon, but I'll let you know. I'll let you know regarding post-duopoly. I try to make it if I can. I know I got a hotspot video I'm shooting around that time as well. So I'll let you guys know. CJ, anything else you went in with? I'll pass it to you. I don't know if you want to do another segment.
No, I'm going to do that one segment. And did you read this one? The Fareed supported.
Yeah. I think I'm done. I'm done. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I'm gonna do this one last segment. So I
see you guys.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yep. I see you guys.
All right. So let's get to this final segment because it's part of our thumbnail. I do need to cover the Vivek, the Jimmy Dore talks Vivek Vivek Ramaswamy has a point of view on. Has a point of view of Ukraine that is the minority, at least of the GOP candidates. So I'm going to show you the clip, and then I'm going to show you Jimmy Dore's reaction, and also have my own reaction. Actually, let me change the banner here. So Jimmy Dore talks Vivek Ramaswamy's Ukraine take. So let's listen to the initial clip of what Vivek says, and then we'll get to the Jimmy Dore clip here. So let's listen.
Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funds?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties. It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not
comedian in cargo
More
pants.
facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now in the Donbass,
Luhansk, Donetsk. These are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it.
So there's that clip. I thought I select the right one. It's the same clip, but it's like 5 seconds longer. And it has this exchange. Okay, this is one here. So I'll fast forward. It's 10 seconds longer. Fast forward it to where we were.
They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week.
So
list of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians?
My bad, everybody. Let me put it in the right spot from where the last video ended here. So this is where we'll pick up so you can hear the full context of this second video.
The mainstream media, the regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk. These are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time
Ramaswamy,
condemn,
thank you. That's time.
at least to
Mr.
condemn
Ramaswamy,
their
thank
banning
you.
of Christians.
So you see that now. Her face tells me she knows Vivek has her good. That's what her face. That's how I read the expression that Nikki has on her face. Now, oops, I should not have closed that one, but I can open another one. So now let me go to Nikki Haley's response before I bring up the Jimmy Dore video. So here is Nikki Haley's response to it. So let's play that. Let's play that again. All right, here we go.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
their
thank
banning
you.
of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. We asked the questions. Ambassador Haley, what is your take on more funding for Ukraine?
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see
The fact of the matter is she doesn't answer
So this
the
is what
question.
I will tell you.
We're driving Russia
first of all,
into China's hands.
Ramaswamy,
Yeah.
you had your time to talk. The ambassador has.
So I was just about to say the same thing. The neocons never address the issue. They just say some flippant, some sort of sarcastic, some sort of staffer written comeback line, and then they just proceed. They never argue the point on substance, as she did in this clip right here. Let's finish the clip.
Has the floor.
Thank you.
Ambassador,
The
please.
first thing I'll tell you is could become president. They would love to
The
see
fact of the matter is she doesn't answer
So
the
this is
question.
what I will tell you.
We're
is,
driving
first
Russia
of all,
into
let's
China's
Mr.
hands
Ramaswamy,
because of
you
these
had
foolish
your time to
policies.
talk. The ambassador has the floor.
Thank
Ambassador,
you. The
please.
first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American country that is fighting for its survival and its democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over. But let's also remember this. When you left Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine, don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. After 9/11, we needed a lot of friends. Now is the time to get partnerships. This unholy alliance between Russia, Ukraine, and China is real. There is a reason that Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China is coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador,
we have to see the combination of the three.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor Chris.
She is quite literally the most unhinged person in the race on both sides. Nikki Haley. She dons that title as the most unhinged that's in this race. So now let me bring up Jimmy Dore's reaction to this. And in the first part of Jimmy Dore's video, he just plays the videos we just played. So I did skip through to the end of where he's listening to the last part of Nikki Haley, and then he goes into his critique with the good boys of due dissidence.
More funding for Ukraine.
I would love to hear what she said. I didn't watch this debate.
Her response is a barrage
you would
of bullshit.
expect. Yeah, an absolute avalanche of lies. We covered that this morning. Yeah.
So it's nice to see Vivek sounding exactly like Jimmy Dore did in February of 2022. Isn't it nice to see the top presidential candidates in the Republican Party? It only took them 2.5 years to sound like a pothead comedian. Isn't that amazing? And if you want to hear more of that pothead comedian, you can come the day after Thanksgiving. We'll be at the Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank, California. Me, Kurt, and Steph will be there telling jokes. And we have over 10,000 watchers on Rumble right now, 10,000 and 8,000 on YouTube. So we're losing.
Wow.
Yeah, so Rumble is the new it's the new YouTube. So that's 18,000 people watching right now in live stream, and that's Russell Brand numbers right there, ladies and gentlemen. And I never even dated Katy Perry to my knowledge. But Katy Perry, by the way, also took over a organic something, and she's getting all the stuff from Bill Gates and what did she take over? Kate, have you heard this story? Anyway, we'll do a story about it later. So let me throw it to the fellas. What do you have to say about Vivek saying that about Ukraine?
Yeah, no, that was pretty red pill. Sorry, Russell, go ahead.
Well, this is part of why the left has a complex, because everything that we say comes true 2 years later.
That's right.
Right. And some of the populist right was saying this also from the beginning, to be fair. Basically, people who don't have the corporate media brain rot. It was very obvious. If you could find articles before they got put down the memory hole, Ukraine has a Nazi problem.
That's right.
It was not hard to find, and very, mainstream establishment journalists before that became a verboten thing to point out. Anybody who knows any Russian history, who knew anything about the relative populations, industrial capacity, could have told you this was going to end the way this is ending now, where Russia is going to get what it wanted. You could have done that 2 years ago and saved tens of thousands of lives instead of going through this. But
hundreds of thousands of lives. Literally hundreds of thousands of lives have been sacrificed in this proxy war over, what is it over? Over selling fossil fuel to Europe. And that's what this is about. And that's why the United States never wanted the Nord Stream pipeline, because America wants to sell their liquefied natural gas. And right now, Germany is paying 4 times the rate for their energy than they were when the Nord Stream pipeline was online. And so go ahead, Keaton.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I was 16 when the Iraq War started. I knew how that would end. I didn't know anything about politics. I just had enough intuition to know that it was going to be an absolute nightmare, and it turned out to be an absolute nightmare. And, I've talked about this on our show before. I'm a millennial, so, my teeth were cut on 9/11 and sort of misadventures in the Middle East. I wasn't really versed in Eastern European geopolitics, that sort of harken back to Cold War rivalries and tensions and things like that. So I knew very, very little when the Russia-Ukraine war started. I did a lot of on-the-job learning, but I had the instinct to know that this is going to end exactly how it looks like it's going to end now, because now I know you did a segment on this last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, where the U.S. and Europe are starting to pressure Zelensky into taking a peace deal because the war is unwinnable. It's very obvious to me, who knew almost nothing about this from jump. I remember we went on Facebook and did a stupid little live stream at the time, the day this happened, saying this war is unwinnable and it was entirely preventable, and they could have prevented it by agreeing to pretty much the exact terms that they're going to have to agree to in order to end it years down the road. And here we are.
So we said at this show, when this war started in Ukraine in February 2022, was that this war is going to end, just like you said, exactly like what Russia, on Russia's terms. And it is. They're going to keep Crimea, they're going to keep the Donbass, and they're going to keep their path to the sea. And that's exactly how this is ending. And they had a peace agreement in March of 2022 before hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians got slaughtered. They had a peace agreement, but the military-industrial complex are murderous, bloodthirsty maniacs who make money off of slaughtering people. And so they sent Boris Johnson from the UK over to Ukraine to tell Zelensky, hey, if you do this, we'll kill you. And not only that, the Nazis, the Azov battalion, said, if you do a peace deal, we'll kill you. We'll hang you from the highest tree. That's what they said. And so that's why Zelensky went along with this. And he's got, if he doesn't go along with it, they're going to kill him, but he's going to end up dead anyway. And we all knew. And by the way, people have no idea. That's why I got so upset when Cornel West went on Anderson Cooper, and he couldn't tell people what was actually happening in Ukraine. It was like he was half there. And he couldn't tell people that there was already a peace agreement called the Minsk Accords. That who broke that Minsk Accords? Well, it was Ukraine, and NATO broke that. It wasn't Russia that broke the peace agreement. It was, and then he didn't tell people that NATO and Ukraine and the Nazis doubled their bombing of the Donbass. He didn't tell people that that's what started this whole thing. He didn't say that they already had peace agreements. So that's what people don't know. They just think that one day Putin woke up because he's a thug, and when people say that, it's just so.
He's a madman.
He's a madman. He's a thug. Okay,
very cartoonish.
And that he woke up and he just decided to invade Ukraine for absolutely no reason. And so they have no idea what he was actually doing. And it was all about the expansion of NATO. And it was about peace agreements we already had in place. And when the United States CIA overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine in 2015, the people in the eastern part of the country, in Ukraine, the Russian speakers, they didn't want to go along with that coup government. And so.
And it's so clear. Jimmy has done this so many times because he has this story down about the backstory of Ukraine. And the reason I say that is because I've covered it so many times. I remember on Tim Pool, he had that too. I remember it's another interview where he just had Tucker Carlson and Russell Brand. I remember all of those interviews. Clear that Jimmy has this down as far as he's covered it enough where he has it as a reflexive sort of memory. But I have sort of the same sort of analysis that the Due Dissidents guys, Russell and Keaton and Jimmy has on this. What Vivek Ramaswamy says is great. What Vivek Ramaswamy says is accurate. But the problem is with Vivek Ramaswamy and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and people like Donald Trump, who are against the Ukraine war, they're all for war with China and or war or to help war with Israel. So that becomes problematic. But I'll take what I can get. If there's a person who is anti-war, 1 out of 4 times, I'll take that one time and try to change their mind on the other 3. So I'll take that from Vivek Ramaswamy and Jimmy Dore and the Due Dissidents guys. And remember, tomorrow, the Post-Duopoly show, third party era has arrived. And we're going to be discussing that along with whatever other, current story that comes out. I'm pretty sure something might jump out of the news cycle or jump into the news cycle before the day is out. But make sure you check this out tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, the Post-Duopoly show And I'm gonna be leaving you. I don't see any other new super chats, but thank you to everybody. We had 10 super chats today. Thank you everybody that sent those super chats. Thank you everybody that watched. Hit that like button on your way out, and don't forget to watch us tomorrow for the post duopoly show, 1 p.m. Eastern, and that's gonna do it for us. See you guys later.